Chapter 3471. It was a disaster. Even the army outside the city knelt down, shocking Intentionless City. The city lord of Intentionless City and the others were all stunned at this moment. Then their jaws dropped. Young Master? The city governor of a main city called the son of the demon Young Master? They were not here to help, but to help the son of the demon? Everyone almost fainted. What was going on? I'm fine. However, if you had come a little later, I might have been in trouble. Lin Ling looked at this group of people in surprise, but he still spoke calmly. These people were the elites of Snow City, and the leader was Tsang Chiri. Lin Ling did not expect that Tsang Chiri had been keeping an eye on him. As long as there was any movement, the army would immediately move out. Young Master, this is my fault. Please punish me. Tsang Chiri knelt on the ground, his whole body trembling. His senior sister had returned with a reward from Lei Gong. Lei Gong was very satisfied with the time taken by the young master to complete the task. He had asked them to assist Lin Ling as much as possible. But now, the young master had almost been attacked in Intentionless City. This scared him so much that he broke out in a cold sweat. It's City Governor Tsang. At this moment, the city governor of Intentionless City finally saw who it was. He was shocked again. If not for the people beside him supporting him, he would have knelt down. City Governor Tsang had called the son of the demon Young Master. This seemed to be troublesome. Damn it, didn't Duan Yun say that the son of the demon and City Governor Tsang were just ordinary friends? Now, City Governor Tsang was kneeling. How could they be ordinary friends? At this moment, the city governor's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He hated Duan Yun to death. You are the city governor of Intentionless City? Tsang Chiri had already stood up and was looking at the other party coldly. This caused all the elites to look at the city governor of Intentionless City. Their gazes scared the city governor and his guards so much that their legs turned to jelly. Misunderstanding, this is a misunderstanding. The city governor of Intentionless City quickly shouted. Then he rushed over and knelt on one knee in front of Lin Ling. Young Master, this is definitely a misunderstanding. Although he did not know that Lin Ling was a young master at this moment, it was obviously safer for him to call Lin Ling Young Master. Misunderstanding? Lin Ling could not help but laugh. Tsang Chiri looked at Lin Ling in confusion. He didn't know what had happened here, but he knew that someone wanted to kill Lin Ling. Well, I'm actually not petty. Since it's a misunderstanding, then forget it. However, Lin Ling also. The city lord of Intentionless City suddenly became agitated and almost kowtowed. He hurriedly said, it's a misunderstanding, it must be a misunderstanding. Young Master is indeed righteous. In the future you will definitely be the son of God. He started to flatter Su Quebec. Although it was a little embarrassing, at least this matter was over. Then he stood up and looked at Lin Ling with an apologetic smile. However, at this moment Lin Ling spoke again. Although I don't care about this and treat it as a misunderstanding, the city lord previously said that even if the people behind me were to come, they would be annihilated. It seems that even if City Governor Tsang came, you would still want him to be destroyed. Hearing this, the city governor's legs turned to jelly. Lin Ling did not care, but he seemed to have offended City Governor Tsang. Destroy me? Tsang Chiri was stunned and immediately looked at Su Quebec. It had been a long time since someone dared to destroy him. This is also a misunderstanding. The city governor kept waving his hands and was about to cry. That's not all. You even want to destroy the old woman. At this moment, Lin Ling spoke again. What? Hearing this, Tsang Chiri was the first to roar. His voice was so terrifying that it was louder than thunder. It shook the entire Intentionless City. That was because the city governor of Intentionless City dared to destroy him, but he even dared to destroy his senior sister? Towards this old woman, he respected her the most. Moreover, not only senior old woman, it seems that even the people behind senior old woman will be destroyed. How bold. Perhaps this is the meaning of a calamity. How dare you? This time, Tsang Chiri's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He was furious. The person behind his senior sister was Lei Gong. The city governor of Intentionless City wanted to destroy the deity? This was simply treason. The city governor had just stood up, but now he was so frightened that he knelt on the ground again. His body was trembling and tears were streaming down his face. Previously he had indeed said that. But he did not know that the son of the devil had such a terrifying background. Do you know who the people behind us are? Tsang Chiri looked at him with a murderous expression. This I really don't know. The city governor said nervously. Lei Gong. Tsang Chiri said word by word. The city governor was dumbfounded. Under his gorgeous robe, the smell of urine wafted out. His pants were wet. He looked as if he had lost his soul. Because, with his status, he naturally knew who Lei Gong was. It could be said that Lei Gong was the ultimate boss of the deity's world. He actually wanted to destroy the boss of the deity's world? He must have been crazy before. At this moment, the city governor wanted to slap himself a few hundred times. Blah. Apart from him, all the guards of Intentionless City knelt on the ground in fear. They could vaguely guess what was going on. The fact that the city governor wanted to destroy the son of the devil was already a huge mistake. However, the city governor still wanted to destroy Zhangqiri. This was courting death. But he wanted to destroy Lei Gong even more. He was probably deader than dead. Son of the devil, please spare my life. I was also bewitched by Duan Yun. I really don't know. Duan Yun, you have done a lot of harm. The city governor kept kowtowing as he spoke. Then he looked angrily at the few Duan family youths. The youths also knew that things were getting troublesome. Kill all of them. The city governor roared. Fuck, these people deliberately framed him. He had no enmity with them, so why would they frame him? Now, even if he was going to die, he would drag these people down with him. The Duan family youths were all scared silly. They had been wrong because they did not frame the city governor. They did not know that Lin Ling had such a strong backer. Suddenly they remembered what Lin Ling had said to Duan Yun. If you have a chance to live, you should go home and ask your ancestors who the son of the devil is. This meant that the Duan family's ancestor had seen Lin Ling. However, the elder ancestor didn't seem to dare to touch Lin Ling. This explained everything. Fuck, go to hell. Fuck, why did you harm us? The strong people of Intentionless City rushed towards the few youths. Powerful attacks exploded and killed them. Their faces were full of hatred. Young master, please spare our lives. We are innocent. Chapter 3472. Goodbye, old woman. Well, I'll let you off this time for the sake of your ignorance. But don't you think you should pay a price for letting the soldiers of Snow City come all the way here? Also, you stopped me from leaving the city. Don't you know that my time is precious? Every second of delay is equivalent to 100 million monarch crystals. Lin Ling didn't intend to pursue the matter any further. Even if he killed the governor, he wouldn't get any benefits. Young master, what do you want? The governor asked hurriedly. Lin Ling glanced at Zhangqiri, and Zhangqiri immediately understood. He said lightly, pay up 50 billion royal crystals and I'll let it go. 50 billion? The governor spat out a mouthful of blood and then fainted. The people of the martial arts clubs around were trembling. 50 billion was an astronomical figure. Even if they sold Intentionless City, they wouldn't be able to get that much money. The son of the devil was indeed ferocious. However, many people were secretly gloating. They knew that the governor would be unlucky. He didn't listen to the old man's advice and now he was going to suffer. My lord, we don't have 50 billion royal crystals. Seeing that the governor had fainted, the guards hurriedly spoke. Search the house. Zhangqiri said immediately. He looked at the guards and said, you provoked Snow City first. I think you should be convinced. Although Intentionless City was not as powerful as Snow City, Zhangqiri didn't dare to act recklessly because they were both in the final world. Yes, we're convinced. All of the guards spoke anxiously. Right now they couldn't wait to send these scourges away. Just treat it as spending money to avoid disaster. Well, this is what you promised. Come on, search the house. Zhangqiri nodded and waved his hand. A large number of experts immediately rushed to the governor's mansion. Lin Ling smiled, took Xiao Yu's hand and slowly left Intentionless City. He's finally gone. No wonder he's the devil. This kind of person is a scourge no matter where he goes. Previously, I thought that it was already the worst thing that could happen when he came to challenge us. But now, it seems that there is no comparison. The city lord is really unlucky. No matter what, I hope that such a person will never come to Intentionless City again. The experts of the various dojos began to whisper to each other, feeling a lingering fear. Fortunately, when Lin Ling challenged the dojo, they didn't violate the rules and didn't let the elders of the dojo step in. Otherwise, they would have been confiscated. The dojo might not be able to continue operating. At this moment, the city lord had just woken up. When he saw that the city lord mansion had been robbed, he was stunned for a long time. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted again. Unfortunately, Lin Ling didn't see any of this. But even if he did, he wouldn't care. He followed Zhangqiri to the Snow City. Some guards reported their gains. They had stolen 30 billion royal crystals and a large number of rare treasures. This huge sum of money also gave Lin Ling a fright. No wonder the city lord wanted to vomit blood. If it were Lin Ling, he would probably vomit blood too. Young master, take these 30 billion royal crystals. Song Qiri looked at Lin Ling and said. He knew that as a trial tester, Lei Gong would not provide any cultivation resources for Lin Ling. So, these royal crystals would be enough for Lin Ling to cultivate for a long time. I'll take 10 billion. You came all the way here. You should at least take some for your hard work. Lin Ling rejected him. He only took part of it, which put Song Qiri in a difficult position. Take it. The soldiers put down what they were doing and came to Intentionless City overnight. Even if you don't want it, you have to experience it for them. Lin Ling said again. In the end, he let Song Qiri take the rest of the royal crystals. All the guards looked at Lin Ling gratefully. They were even more convinced by Lin Ling. Everyone hurried back. Because of the army, Lin Ling did not take Xiaoyu to sightsee. It did not take long for them to return to Snow City. Lin Ling walked directly in the direction of the courtyard. As soon as he arrived at his residence, a burly figure was already waiting there. After seeing Lin Ling, the person could not help but smile. She was Lin Ling's guardian, the old woman. Moreover, she had already told Lei Gong about Lin Ling's completion of the task. In exchange, Lei Gong praised her. Although it was just a simple sentence, it made her happier than anything else. Lin Ling, you're back. The old woman was the first to smile. Lin Ling noticed that the old woman's attitude towards him had changed again. If the old woman was cold and indifferent when they were in Qing province, then in the final world she treated Lin Ling as a friend. But now, even when she spoke to him, she would smile. She almost treated him as one of her own. I'm back. Lin Ling immediately smiled and nodded. This time, the Thunder Lord is very appreciative of you because the time you took to complete the mission was very short. Furthermore, among the 10 challengers, you were the only one who obtained the Mahakasayapa incantation. This also led to your first trial mission being completed. The Thunder Lord also promised me that he would send people to protect Qingzhou. Hearing this, Lin Ling immediately became happy. With Lei Gong's protection, he finally had no worries. By the way, your wife, Yu, her talent is also very good. I plan to let her come to the final world in a while. The old woman said again. Thank you, senior. Lin Ling was even happier. The final world was not a place that anyone could enter. If Yu and the others could enter, it would definitely be of great benefit to them. Moreover, Yu's talent was also not weak. She also had the dragon bloodline. She would definitely rise in the final world. Is my family okay? Lin Ling asked. They're fine. The enemies of the new Heavenly Court and the Flying Dragon Organization don't dare to enter Qingzhou easily. Although they know that you're in the final world, they won't dare to provoke you. The old woman smiled. Suddenly she thought of something and said, by the way, your friends, the God-Slaying Alliance, are currently in the 7 great forbidden lands of the 9 prefectures. They should be increasing their strength there. Hearing this, Lin Ling was shocked. It seemed that Lei Gong was very responsible. Even his brother and the others were secretly protecting him. Kaiyuan River? Then Lin Ling became curious again. Yes, it's located in the Universal Void. It's also an extremely ancient existence. Many of the sea gods' bloodlines are there. It's said that the dragon race is also hidden there. The old woman nodded. Lin Ling immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that the Kaiyuan River was extremely extraordinary. However, his brother and the others would definitely have their own opportunities. He hoped that when they met again, his brother, Meng Lu, and Wangu Wuji's strength would increase greatly. By the way, you have 3 missions in your first mission. If you complete 2 of them, you'll pass the divine trial. However, there's still 1 more mission. Do you want to do it? However, there's no reward for completing it. The old woman said again. Lin Ling had completed the first divine trial and received 2 rewards. One of the rewards was to let Lei Gong protect Qingzhou. As for the other mission, it didn't matter if he did it or not. Chapter 3473. Illusionary God World. This mission is the Shrine Tournament. If you can become the champion of the Shrine Tournament, the Snow Wind Academy will reward you with 1 billion royal crystals and you can cultivate in the Dragon Space Valley. The old woman smiled at Lin Ling. She seemed to have heard from Song Qiri about Lin Ling's strength, so she said with certainty, with your strength, it won't be difficult for you to become the champion of the Shrine Tournament. Shrine Tournament. I'm currently a student of the Shen Second Hall, so it shouldn't be difficult. Lin Ling nodded. If it was an expert from the Shen Third Hall, he naturally couldn't do it. However, if it was the Shin Second Hall, he was confident that he could defeat many of them. Looks like you've agreed. The shrine tournament will begin in a month. The old woman clearly didn't care about Lin Ling's participation in the mission. If there wasn't a reward from the Snow Wind Academy, she might not have recommended Lin Ling to participate. After completing this mission, the second mission of the Trial of God will come. Lin Ling, do your best. After exchanging a few more words, the old woman left. Lin Ling also entered the courtyard and tidied up his loot. With the 10 billion royal crystals he had obtained from the intentionless city, Lin Ling was confident that he could reach the 7th stage of the Sage Realm. However, he didn't plan to break through for the time being. After all, he had some royal crystals on him in case he needed them. That night, Lin Ling began to cultivate in the courtyard. Although the power of the spiritual marrow couldn't increase the level of the spacetime divine steel, it constantly stimulated the dragon god bloodline and the realm-devouring beast's talents. Unfortunately, the dragon god bloodline's talents were related to the physical body. If he wanted to truly advance, he would need treasures related to the dragon clan. Currently, my spacetime divine steel has reached its limit. Will be my trump card for a long time. Moreover, I have 5 Danshins. Otherwise, with my current realm, I wouldn't be able to use the full power of the spacetime divine steel. In the intentionless city, Lin Ling had experienced the power of the spacetime divine steel, and the result was beyond his imagination. It could be said that without the ultimate 5th grade desolate body, Lin Ling wouldn't be afraid of anyone at the initial stage martial ancestor realm. And if they possessed a 5th grade ultimate desolate body with an orthodox bloodline, even if they were at the sage realm, Lin Ling would find it difficult to defeat them. This was the advantage of talent. Right now, it's not suitable for me to increase my cultivation, and my fiend god physique can't be improved for the time being. In the starry sky forest, because of God Emperor Zhang illusory realm, Lin Ling's soul power had increased to 12,000 levels. My stage 12,000 level steel star, Transin star, Lin Ling's. Lin's Estienne star. The illusion god true inheritance placed great importance on soul force and talent. The stronger one's soul force was, the faster one could cultivate. If one had the corresponding talent and was of a high rank, then the limits of the illusion would be even greater. Lin Ling immediately entered the stage of enlightenment. His body suddenly became illusory and beautiful, as if it was formed by all kinds of colors. His can spirit. Lin, God realm god was God around Lin Ling, endless plants began to spread. Hundreds of flowers bloomed, full of vitality. It was as if the entire courtyard had turned into another world. A pure white moon suddenly appeared in the sky, covering the earth with a white veil. On the ground, a green grassland quietly appeared. Hundreds of flowers quietly bloomed under the night sky, their beauty quietly blossoming. This world was very quiet and very beautiful. It was as if everything was real. But in reality it was all an illusion. Outside the courtyard, Xiao Yu, Du Ying, and the others were shocked as they looked at the moon in the sky in disbelief. Xiao Yu and the little white rabbit were running happily on the prairie. Qin Jian rushed out of the courtyard and realized that Snow City was still outside. But when he entered the courtyard, it was as if he had entered another world. My lord's methods are godly, Qin Jian said in disbelief. However, even though this world seemed to be real, it lacked one thing, and that was living beings. Could have plants, wind, light, etc. However, it didn't have any animals. The only one was Lin Ling. Countless Lin Lings could appear in this world. It was hard to distinguish between the real and the fake. And this was the final realm of the illusion god true inheritance, the illusion god world. Unfortunately, Lin Ling still couldn't touch the strongest essence of the illusion god. It was said that the strongest illusion god world not only had animals but also countless people. In the end, Lin Ling didn't have the talent of the illusion god. He was only relying on his soul force. But if the illusion god bloodline was here, it would be enough to shock them. Because to rely on soul force to create a world, even experts with the illusion god bloodline wouldn't be able to do it. In the beautiful world, a large number of Lin Lings were walking around. Only one Lin Ling was sitting cross-legged. His body was still colorful, as if he was a man of light. He opened his eyes and looked at all the Lin Lings in the world. He muttered to himself, "These illusion doppelgangers actually have 30% of my strength. Unfortunately, they can only survive in an illusion." Lin Ling knew that he had cultivated the illusion god true inheritance to the peak. It would be difficult for him to improve even a little. A month quietly passed. On this day the Divine Hall tournament finally began. And Lin Ling brought Xiao Yu and the others out of the courtyard. It was as if he was isolated from the world. Looking at the bustling streets and alleys, his heart became incomparably calm. What his world lacked was this kind of vitality. And he knew that he wouldn't be able to cross this giant barrier no matter what. Perhaps, when I can truly create a world, I will already be a god. Lin Ling muttered to himself. The corner of his mouth revealed a smile. He didn't care about this, not in his heart. Not long after, he arrived at the Snow Wind Academy. At this moment, the Snow Wind Academy was bustling with noise and excitement. All the experts had returned. Lin Ling saw many experts among them. Some of them weren't much weaker than him. Presumably, they were the experts of the Divine Three Halls. The experts of the Divine Three Halls were said to have been in the final world for 10,000 years. They were once the most outstanding heroes of the 9 provinces and 10,000 worlds. And the Divine Hall tournament was a grand tournament in the entire Snow Wind City. There were even many experts from the nearby cities who came to watch. I heard that this time, the Dean will also come to the Divine Hall tournament. Yes, many experts from the nearby cities have come. Look, that's a hero from the Island of Heroes. He's also the city lord of a main city. His strength is already at the level of half-step martial god. Our Snow Wind City lord has also come. TSK, it's really lively. However, to be able to watch the battle between the experts of these academies is also very beneficial for us. A large number of people entered the Snow Wind Academy. They chatted as they walked and were extremely excited. And the number of people scared after Image and the others. Moreover, among the crowd, their strength was considered to be very ordinary. Can the Snow Wind Academy accommodate so many people? Chapter 3474. The Dean's Son. In the future, if he returned to the 9 states with Duing, he would be able to brag about this matter to others. At that time, others would only envy him. Because, to be able to watch the final world competition, this was not an opportunity that just anyone could have. Snow Wind Academy is so big that we haven't even seen the whole place. It shouldn't be difficult to accommodate these experts. Lin Ling said with a smile. Speaking of which, after becoming a student of Snow Wind Academy, he had not seen the whole academy. Every time he came, he would leave in a hurry. You guys go find Senior Tsang. I'll go back to my class first. Lin Ling said to Duing and the others. After Xiao Yu and the others left, he went back to his class. Lin Ling. After Lin Ling appeared, Teacher Tsailuan and the others were extremely surprised. This was because they all thought that Lin Ling would not participate in the competition. One must know that ever since Lin Ling returned from Starry Sky Forest, he had not appeared in Starry Sky Academy for a period of time. Lin Ling. Zhuang Yanming and the others quickly greeted Lin Ling. Lin Ling nodded indifferently. His face was still cold, neither happy nor sad. Everyone was already used to such an attitude and did not feel that Lin Ling was arrogant. Instead, they felt that everything was normal. After all, they all owed Lin Ling their lives. In addition, Lin Ling had the strength, so he had the right to be arrogant. It's good that you're back. Are you going to participate in the competition? Teacher Tsailuan said to Lin Ling with a smile. Her attitude towards Lin Ling had also changed a lot. Lin Ling nodded again. You are now a student of Shanair Hall. If you participate in the competition, you will have to face the experts of Shanair Hall. Those guys are all martial ancestors. Lin Ling was also the only expert in their class who had become a member of Shanair Hall. However, no one was very confident that Lin Ling could win first place in the competition. It was undeniable that Lin Ling was the strongest in the first God Hall, but the second God Hall was filled with seniors. Don't worry, they are no match for me. Lin Ling smiled faintly. He had absolute confidence in himself. This time he came for the prize of the competition. If he couldn't get first place, he wouldn't participate. As for fame? Lin Ling didn't need these things. At present, the strongest in Shanair Hall is Tianao. In the last Shinto Hall tournament, he was the #1 freshman. Lin Ling, if you want to be #1, you will have to face him. Tianao, he is the Dean's son. It is said that the Dean came for him. He's a level 2 martial ancestor realm expert. He's almost invincible among the initial stage martial ancestors. Everyone in the class started to talk about it. Although they felt that Lin Ling was no match for Tianao, they didn't think that Lin Ling was overestimating himself. After all, Lin Ling's cultivation time was not as long as Tianao's. In fact, Lin Ling was still a freshman in the first God Hall. The Dean's son. Seeing everyone's enthusiastic explanation, Lin Ling said in surprise. Speaking of which, you are somewhat related to him. He is also a member of the new heavenly court and is working hard to become the disciple of Wenian martial god. At this time, Earring said faintly. She came from the Flying Dragon organization, so she naturally knew about this. Of course, she also had some contradictions in her heart. The Flying Dragon organization and Lin Ling had a grudge, but she personally thought highly of Lin Ling, so she didn't know which side she should stand on. New heavenly court. Lin Ling was surprised again, but the fighting spirit in his heart was boiling. So far, he had come into contact with a few of Wenian martial god's disciples, and they were either killed by him or defeated by Lin Ling. Now that Tianao was here, he would definitely be defeated by Lin Ling. Don't worry, it's just Tianao. I will defeat him. Thinking of this, Lin Ling looked at everyone and said. Teacher Tsailuan and the others were shocked. Looking at Lin Ling's appearance, it seemed that he didn't even put Tianao in his eyes. If they didn't know Lin Ling, they would definitely think that Lin Ling was bragging. However, Lin Ling had done too many impossible things, so they weren't too sure. Let's go, the competition is about to begin. Lin Ling, you don't need to go through the elimination process and directly enter the final battle. Every class can recommend one person and our class will recommend you. Teacher Tsailuan put away her thoughts and said with a smile. Lin Ling's strength had already been recognized, so there was no need for him to go through any elimination process. Next, Lin Ling followed everyone out of the class and arrived at the Snow Wind Academy's Divine Temple. This Divine Temple was actually bigger than the Snow Wind Academy's square. At this moment, more than 100,000 people had already gathered here, making it extremely lively. Lin Ling was also secretly surprised. This kind of battlefield, perhaps only the Yen State's arena could compare to it. And in the final world, this is only the location of a school's competition. This shows the difference. That's the son of Devil Lin Ling. I heard that he's the strongest person in the Divine First Hall and has just entered the Divine Second Hall. TSK, I didn't expect him to participate in the competition. That means he's going to fight the experts of the Divine Second Hall. He's the strongest person in the class and can be nominated by God's messenger. He doesn't need to be eliminated immediately and can directly compete for first place. I wonder if he can become the number one in the Divine Second Hall. I think it's a bit difficult. When Lin Ling entered the sacred Divine Temple, voices immediately sounded out from all around. In the Snow Wind Academy, Lin Ling is now a famous person. Whether it's a new student or a senior student, they all know about Lin Ling and even know about Lin Ling's great name in the 9 regions. Of course, among the crowd, many people looked at Lin Ling with a strange gaze. These people are obviously related to the new Heavenly Court Flying Dragon Organization, Fuhang Manor, and other forces in the 9 regions. Towards Lin Ling, they naturally want to kill him, but in the final world, they don't dare to act recklessly. And in the Snow Wind Academy, there are many hostile gazes. Among them is Zhou Lin. Last time, he knelt in front of the Snow Wind Academy's gate for 3 days and 3 nights and lost all his face. Now he has become a legend in the academy. So when he saw Lin Ling, he wished he could cut Lin Ling into 8 pieces. In addition to him, those who are hostile towards Lin Ling are the senior students, especially the experts of the Divine Second Hall. They all want to defeat Lin Ling and beat Lin Ling back to his original state. And these gazes are also noticed by Lin Ling. He shook his head and didn't care at all. On the contrary, when Teacher Zhou Lin looked over, he smiled faintly and said, "Anyway, I'm bored. Why don't we make a bet?" This sentence seems to be talking to himself, but many people know that Lin Ling is talking to Teacher Zhou Lin. Bet again? Teacher Zhou Lin shuddered and immediately shifted his gaze. Last time, because of the bet, he lost all his face. Now he wants to bet again? He is determined not to bet. This is really disappointing. In any case, he is still a messenger of God. He can't go up or down. With such a heart of martial arts, I'm afraid he won't be able to go far in the final world. Seeing that Teacher Zhou Lin doesn't dare to look at him, Lin Ling shook his head regretfully and then said in a senior tone, "Fuck." Chapter 3475. Another battle with Yi Yiming. Lin Ling no longer paid any attention to him. Just as he was about to walk towards Teacher Tsailuan, he suddenly felt a burning gaze on him. This is Lin Ling. On the other side of the shrine, a man with his hands behind his back looked at Lin Ling indifferently. That's right, he is the son of Devil Lin Ling. He is also the most powerful expert in God One Hall. Someone beside him immediately nodded. So that's how it is. The man also nodded. His face was indifferent and his expression was indifferent. He is wearing a standard long robe and his long hair is tied behind his head. He gives off an extremely cold feeling. Without a doubt, he is the strongest expert in God 2 Hall. He is also the dean's son, Tianao. He saw that Lin Ling dared to participate in the God Hall tournament. If Lin Ling dares to face him, he will definitely teach Lin Ling a lesson. Because he is now a member of the new heavenly court, but he is still not considered martial god Wen Tian's disciple. So if he can defeat Lin Ling, he will definitely become martial god Wen Tian's disciple. Moreover, he heard that senior brother Ning Bo Tao has a lot of resentment towards Lin Ling. So, he can be considered as helping senior brother Ning Bo Tao vent his anger. The dean has arrived. At this moment, a loud and clear voice suddenly rang out. At the entrance of the shrine, a golden light suddenly shone in. It is somewhat dazzling, but it also gives people a sense of warmth. In the hazy light, a tall and sturdy figure gradually became clear. This is a man of about 40 years old. He has a dignified beard on his face. He is wearing a golden long robe. He is standing straight and gives off a strong sense of majesty. With his appearance, the entire shrine seems to have brightened up by a few points. And he is the Dean of Snow Wind Academy. Behind him are a large number of teachers. Moreover, their strength is not weak. Their bodies are covered with divine light. It seems that they are all God's holy knights. This group of people's strength has reached a monstrous level. Seeing this, everyone saluted. Lin Ling also saluted slightly. However, he is a little surprised in his heart because he discovered that the dean's strength is stronger than he imagined. It seems that he is even stronger than the old woman. His strength was most likely at the martial god realm. The headmaster is indeed a martial god level expert. At this moment, Siluan sent a telepathic message to him and explained, although the dean is a martial god, there are differences in strength between the martial gods. Therefore, he is not considered one of the top 10 martial gods in the 9 prefectures. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded in understanding. After the dean led the experts in, he immediately greeted them. He was especially polite to Tsang Chiri. Obviously, he had to give some face to the city lord. Then he smiled and said, "The shrine tournament begins today. As long as you become the champion of each hall, you will be able to obtain 1 billion royal crystals and enter the Dragon Space Valley to cultivate." As soon as the reward was announced, the temple immediately became lively. The eyes of all the experts of the Divine Hall burned with passion. 1 billion royal crystals was enough to nurture a martial progenitor realm expert. Of course, it would only be an ordinary martial progenitor, but it was enough to tempt people. Even Lin Ling was tempted. He had cultivated 5 Danshians at the same time, and he also had the Divine Dragon bloodline. All of these required a huge amount of cultivation resources. Therefore, he would not miss out on this 1 billion royal crystals. Then let's begin. Following the dean's shout, the shrine tournament began immediately. There were 3 tournaments in total, which were the first hall, second hall, and third hall. There were also 3 martial stages. All the participants had to go through an elimination round before they could compete for the champion. However, as long as the champion of the class was recommended by a teacher, he would not need to go through the elimination round and could compete for the champion directly. Immediately, all the divine halls began to nominate the champion of their class. When it was Lin Ling's turn, Lin Ling was nominated. The entire temple suddenly became silent. On the highest seat, the dean looked at Lin Ling with great interest and said, "This must be the son of Demon." Clearly, even he had heard of Lin Ling's name. Dean is Lin Ling. In the starry sky forest, he managed to survive a year alone and found the astral origin stone. He is the strongest in the first hall. The deputy dean immediately said. Hearing this, the dean nodded his head and said, "Pretty good talent. His ultimate desolate body should be in the 3rd grade. However, he is now a student of the 2nd hall. If he wants to compete for the champion, there are many people in front of him. Dean, if Lin Ling can reach the end, young Master Qianao will have to fight him," the deputy dean said with a smile. "Let's hope he can do his best." The dean immediately retracted his gaze. Clearly, he did not believe that Lin Ling was his son's match. There was no hope at all. However, he did not underestimate Lin Ling. After all, Lin Ling was originally a student of the 1st hall. It was already very impressive for him to be able to fight a student of the 2nd hall. As time passed, the battles in the 3 competition zones became more intense. The god's enchantment that protected the stage was constantly swaying. The spectators were in high spirits as they cheered. The experts on the stage had all touched the great Tao. In the 9 prefectures they were godlike existences. Therefore, to be able to watch their battles was very beneficial to the spectators. At this moment, in the 1st hall's competition zone, the elimination round had already begun. After a series of intense battles, there were finally 15 people. These 15 people were clearly competing for the champion. Lin Ling, Qianao and other experts were among them. These 15 people would fight by drawing lots. Lin Ling was recommended by teacher Cailuan, so he did not need to participate in the elimination round. Therefore he drew number 9 and soon, it was his turn. When they saw him enter the stage, many people looked at him curiously. Cailuan and the others were the same. They hoped that Lin Ling would not meet a strong opponent. However, after thinking about it, how could those who could stand in the final competition zone be weak? When Lin Ling stepped onto the stage, his opponent quickly appeared. What surprised everyone was that this person was actually Yi Yiming. Yi Yiming, teacher Zhou Lin's proudest disciple. After the freshman's trial, he wanted Lin Ling to prove himself. In the end, he was defeated by Lin Ling. Moreover, he had lost in an extremely ugly manner. He had been knocked unconscious. Now he was going to fight with Lin Ling again. Lin Ling also looked at the opposite side of the stage in surprise. The youth on the opposite side was looking at Lin Ling with a murderous gaze. He was Yi Yiming. He did not expect to meet Lin Ling again. After the previous humiliation, he and teacher Zhou Lin had become the laughing stock of the academy. This humiliation he had to wash away today. He could not help but look at teacher Zhou Lin in the distance. At this moment, teacher Zhou Lin nodded heavily at him, full of anticipation. Lin Ling, enemies will meet. I did not expect you to meet me again. Yi Yiming shouted coldly. Chapter 3476. Old Hooligan. Help. Upon mentioning this, Yi Yiming nearly vomited blood from anger. Previously, Lin Ling had repeatedly helped him up, but he kept falling down. He had become a huge joke. Lin Ling, I want you to pay me back 100 times, no, 1,000 times for the humiliation from last time. Yi Yiming roared angrily as a powerful aura burst out. I don't think you stand a chance. Lin Ling glanced at him indifferently, still as nonchalant as ever. However, as Yi Yiming's aura kept increasing, the entire stage began to tremble. Billowing blood shadows covered the entire stage as the stage turned into a world of blood. Congealed divine blood. This was Yi Yiming's talent. However, it was a third-grade ultimate desolate body the last time, and now his talent was still increasing. What? Yi Yiming's realm did not change, but his strength seems to have increased. Could it be? It's not a could it be, it's a fact. This guy managed to raise his talent to the peak of the third grade in less than a year. The stage began to shake as countless people stood up. They thought that Yi Yiming would be defeated by Lin Ling once again, but they realized that the battle situation had changed. Knowing shame makes one brave. Only after experiencing shame can a martial artist transform. Yi Yiming has clearly transformed. Teacher Zhou Lin said with a faint smile. Following that, he rubbed his nose and said, Is my disciple only at the third grade? Teacher Zhou Lin, what do you mean? Beside him, a teacher found it even more unbelievable. Boom. Almost at the same time, a blood beam shot into the sky from the stage as if a god had descended. The fourth grade ultimate desolate body was shockingly displayed, shocking the entire school. Although the fourth grade ultimate desolate body was not unique to the Shanair Hall, Yi Yiming only had a third-grade ultimate desolate body not long ago. And increasing one's talent was the most difficult. It was 1,000 times harder than one's realm. No one expected Yi Yiming to succeed. Yi Yiming has a fourth-grade ultimate desolate body. Teacher Cailuan and the rest had a drastic change in expression. No one in their class had such talent. Ah! While they were shocked, Mr. Zhou Lin, who was hiding in the crowd, let out a loud laugh. It was as if he could finally vent all the grievances he had suffered during this period of time. Looking at Yi Yiming again, his entire body had turned red. His surroundings were filled with blood-red light. Those who got close to him, if they were not talented enough, would immediately die from blood loss. Son of Devil Lin Ling, what do you have to say? Yi Yiming's voice was a lot hoarse. He guessed that Lin Ling should be very surprised right now. Last time he was only a third-grade talent, which was why he was defeated by Lin Ling. But now he was a fourth-grade talent. A seemingly insignificant first-grade talent, but his strength had more than doubled. Last time you helped me up. How many times have you smashed me? This time I'm going to smash you to death. I'm going to smash you 100 times, 1,000 times. Bloody sea world. Without waiting for Lin Ling to speak, Yi Yiming's body erupted with a sea of blood. It was like a river of blood from the underworld surging toward Lin Ling. I won. At the same time, a prideful voice rang clearly in everyone's ears. The dean, the gods' emissaries of the various classes, and the experts of the various cities narrowed their eyes. If that sea of blood was placed in the 10,000 worlds, it would probably drown many worlds. This battle is a little interesting. If Lin Ling wants to win, it won't be easy. I don't think he'll win. Dean, what do you think of this battle? In my opinion, it might be a draw. Although the Son of Devil has the space-time god eye, and in terms of nobility, it's more powerful than the Supreme Condensed God Blood, but the Supreme Condensed God Blood is of a higher grade. These experts discussed animatedly. At this moment, the surging sea of blood corroded everything and reached Lin Ling. What was frightening was that even in the face of this sea of blood, Lin Ling still had his hands behind his back and his eyes half closed. That calmness didn't make him look like a martial artist of the 9 prefectures, but more like a god. Almost at the same time, a huge ancient monument suddenly appeared in the sky above the sea of blood. Then it came crashing down violently. Boom. When the ancient monument came crashing down, endless flames burst out. The sea of blood was unstoppable and was suppressed on the stage, including Yi Yiming. This scene shocked everyone present. Everyone's mouth was agape. What was happening? However, under the gazes of the crowd, Lin Ling walked over just like that, dragging a silhouette out from the bottom of the monument, grabbing the neck of that person as he stared at him with a strange expression on his face. And the person being grabbed was none other than Yi Yiming. Bang. Following that, Lin Ling smashed Yi Yiming into the ground of the stage. Furthermore, he did not let go of his hand. He continued smashing Yi Yiming's neck, causing the stage to tremble. Smash me 100 times? Smash me 1,000 times? A 4th grade ultimate desolate body dares to act cool in front of me? Boom. With the final smash, the ground cracked open and a human-shaped crater appeared. Yi Yiming was smashed into the crater once again and fainted completely. He thought that he had reached the 4th grade ultimate desolate body and could wash away his humiliation. But in the end, he still could not escape the fate of being smashed. Such strength makes me unable to raise my spirits. I hope that I can draw a stronger opponent the next time. In the silence, Lin Ling also left the stage. The entire process was casual and he did not show any signs of complacency or panic. It was as if everything was only natural. However, around the stage, shocked gazes were already looking at Lin Ling. Even a 4th grade ultimate desolate body could not withstand a single blow? Could Lin Ling's talent have also reached the 4th grade? Heavens, Lin Ling was only a 3rd grade not long ago. But in this short period of time, he had reached the 4th grade. Yi Yiming had become stronger, but Lin Ling had become even stronger. Over at Teacher Tsailuan's side, everyone's mouths were agape. Zhuang Yanming, Chu Yun, Earring, Fairy Xn Yen and company all felt immense pressure. They did not know if Lin Ling was already this strong or if his strength had only increased during this period of time. In short, this fellow was too hooligan. His strength was as strong as an old hooligan's. His talent has probably reached the 5th grade. The dean squinted his eyes and muttered to himself. 5th grade? Dean, you must be joking. How can anyone increase their talent by 2 grades in such a short period of time? This is the ultimate desolate body, not the desolate body. The deputy dean was shocked. However, the dean shook his head because he was not sure. Most importantly, if Lin Ling's spacetime god eye had reached the 4th grade, defeating Yi Yiming would be very easy. After all, the bloodline of the spacetime god eye was even more noble. We will know when we continue watching. The dean said indifferently. Lin Ling is really abnormal. From his eyes, I can see that he doesn't feel any pressure at all for the number 1 position in the Chenair Hall. The vice dean sighed softly and waited quietly. Chapter 3477. Is really the 5th stage. After Lin Ling walked back, Tsailuan and the others were still surprised, especially Xing Jinming and the others. They all stared at Lin Ling because they had seen Lin Ling fight in the Starry Sky Forest. They knew that Lin Ling had the dragon bow and was extremely powerful. Moreover, he could transform into a monster. However, they did not expect that Lin Ling had more means than they had imagined. Lin Ling only smiled at everyone's surprise and looked at the Shinsan Hall's area. Only a battle of that level could attract his attention. The experts of the Shinsan Hall had been cultivating in the Snow Wind Academy for at least 3,000 years. They were much stronger than everyone else. Moreover, many of them were already God's emissaries and God's paladins. They were even stronger than the teachers. Lin Ling, do you want to enter that battlefield? Seeing that Lin Ling did not pay attention to the Shinsan Hall's area, Tsailuan was somewhat speechless. According to the rules, Lin Ling was actually half a freshman of the Shinsan Hall. However, his eyes were not on the Shinsan Hall nor the Shinsan Hall. He was actually looking at the strongest area. Could it be that Lin Ling thought that no one in the Shinsan Hall's area could stop him? Thinking of this, Siluan could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This guy was really a monster. Lin Ling nodded, his eyes were still looking at the Shinsan Hall's area. Not long after, it was Lin Ling's turn to fight again. At this moment, many people were looking forward to it. At present, there were fewer and fewer experts in the Shinsan Hall. The rest were all elites. They did not know who Lin Ling's opponent would be. Luo Wuchang from the Heavenly Luo family. When the opponent appeared, the Shinsan Hall's area became the focus again. It's actually Luo Wuchang. This Lin Ling is going to lose. This is a member of the Heavenly Luo family. Moreover, Luo Wuchang has joined God Miao's true inheritance. In the Shinsan Hall, he is a veteran expert. There was a lot of discussion in the surroundings. God Miao's true inheritance? Lin Ling, on the other hand, was slightly surprised. This was because this enormous force was the final gathering place of boundary masters in the 9 prefectures. God Slayer Alliance's Ye Shui was a true disciple of Miao Shen. Lin Ling, be careful. Luo Wuchang is a second-layer martial progenitor. Furthermore, his talent is extremely outstanding, and his defense is invincible. Although he is only a 4th-grade martial progenitor, he has already reached his peak. Yi Yiming is no match for him. Teacher Tsiluan said worriedly. Yi Yiming had just made a breakthrough in his talent, so he was naturally incomparable to Luo Wuchang. To me, he's not much different from Yi Yiming. Lin Ling smiled and floated towards the martial hall. A young man with long blue hair was already standing on the martial arts platform. He was Luo Wuchang. Luo Wuchang was very handsome and had a noble temperament. Just by standing there quietly, he had already attracted the attention of many women. Son of Devil Lin Ling, right? I've heard of you since a few years ago. I didn't think you'd be able to come to the final world. However, defeating Yi Yiming should be your limit. Against me you still won't be able to win. Later, when we have a proper exchange of pointers, just admit defeat. Luo Wuchang looked at Lin Ling and said. His voice was arrogant, but there was no hint of mockery in it. It was as if he was stating a fact. Lin Ling shook his head and didn't say much. He said indifferently, make your move. All right, I'll show you the difference between us. Luo Wuchang was stunned for a moment before he said with a frown. He had not expected Lin Ling to be so straightforward. A green light began to emit from his body and merged with his boundary essence. It turned into a fist that flew towards Lin Ling. Although the fist looked ordinary, it was not to be underestimated as it contained the rich boundary essence of a second-layer martial progenitor. According to Lin Ling's previous assessment of his strength, it'll be difficult for him to block this fist. After all, the gap between his cultivation level and Luo Wuchang's is too big. Furthermore, Luo Wuchang's talent is extraordinary. He can merge all living beings into his body and use them to increase the power of his boundary essence. This means that Luo Wuchang's boundary essence has surpassed the second-layer martial progenitor realm. That's right, unless Lin Ling's talent reaches the 5th grade, then there's still a chance. Speaking of which, when Lin Ling defeated Yi Yiming, the dean guessed that Lin Ling's talent had reached the 5th grade. However, it's too abnormal, so the dean was unable to confirm it. I also feel that it's abnormal. It said that Lin Ling only had the 3rd grade spacetime god eye at the beginning. It's only been a year, so it's impossible for him to jump 2 levels. The teachers in the academy began to discuss among themselves. After coming out of the Starry Sky Forest, many teachers had begun to pay attention to Lin Ling. Therefore, they had a certain understanding of Lin Ling's strength. As for the dean and vice-dean, they were also staring at Lin Ling. They wanted to confirm if Lin Ling had the 5th grade ultimate desolate body. Facing Luo Wuchang's attack, Lin Ling's eyes flickered. He sensed that Luo Wuchang's boundary essence was stronger than an ordinary second-layer martial progenitor. Furthermore, Luo Wuchang had yet to unleash his talent. This guy's strength had obviously surpassed 90% of second-layer martial progenitors. Unfortunately, although he was monstrous, he had encountered Lin Ling. What is Lin Ling doing? He doesn't seem to have any intention of attacking. Yeah, his hands are still behind his back. Could it be that he has surrendered? No, he must be preparing the Spacetime God Eye. The Spacetime God Eye is an eye-type talent that can be used to attack. But can his Spacetime God Eye stop Luo Wuchang? Many people stared at Lin Ling in shock. In fact, Lin Ling was too calm. At this moment, Lin Ling's eyes finally flickered. Rumble. In the sky, the ancient stone tablet pressed down with an imposing aura that could destroy thousands of gods and demons. Just as everyone had guessed, Lin Ling intended to use the Spacetime God Eye to fight against his opponent. Boom. Luo Wuchang originally disdained Lin Ling's Spacetime God Steel, but at this moment he sensed a strange change. It was a terrifying power. His fist no longer attacked Lin Ling, but blasted toward the sky in an attempt to destroy the ancient stone tablet. Bang bang bang. A deafening sound rang out, and then Luo Wuchang's body flew back several hundred meters. Rumble. The Spacetime God Steel did not hit Luo Wuchang, but suppressed the martial arts stage, causing it to shake violently. Everyone was immediately dumbfounded. What was going on? Could it be that your talent has reached the 5th grade? Luo Wuchang stood in the distance and looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Previously, he had condensed his boundary essence and blasted it toward the ancient stone tablet, but the result was that he felt as if he had hit the palm of a god. A force that was not weaker than his returned to him, causing his arm to go numb and he could only dodge the attack. When he said this, the divine hall was in an uproar. It was really a 5th grade talent. In less than a year, this guy has broken through 2 levels in a row? Heavens, even if it's his cultivation, it's impossible to break through 2 levels in a year. A 6th grade martial sage against a 2nd grade martial ancestor, and a 2nd grade martial ancestor was forced to retreat. This is unbelievable. Chapter 3478. A flame that could burn everything in the world. The dean and deputy dean's pupils trembled violently. They had guessed it before, but they felt that it was impossible, so they were not sure. But now they were 100% sure. That was because the ancient monument that was filled with multicolored flames was clearly suppressing the martial stage. Following that, their bodies began to tremble. There were 36 colleges in the final world with countless experts. However, Lin Ling was probably the only person who could make an ultimate desolate body break through 2 levels in less than 2 years. This guy was really an old hooligan with formidable strength. Lin Ling ignored everyone's shock and looked at Luo Wuchang indifferently. You had better use your full strength. Those tricks from before were enough to bully some kids. They're useless against me. His words were arrogant, but he had the right to be arrogant. Luo Wuchang's heart trembled. The contempt disappeared and was replaced with seriousness, as if he had met a top expert of Chenair Hall. Alright, I'll use my full strength next. I hope you can use your full strength as well. Let us fight to our heart's content. Luo Wuchang's aura began to rise as he pushed this battle to its peak. You want me to use my full strength? That will depend on whether you have the ability. Lin Ling said indifferently. His words were still arrogant and frivolous. Luo Wuchang's juniors cursed under their breaths. Lin Ling was too immodest. However, Luo Wuchang did not care about Lin Ling's words. The green light on his body became more intense. Following that, a god appeared behind him. It was a giant wearing green armor. The armor was filled with mysterious runes. He sat cross-legged on the martial stage like the immovable Wisdom King, Daluo Valurium King. This was a talent above the 100 great bloodlines. It was the bloodline of a god. Although it wasn't very pure, the aura it released was extremely terrifying. Although this talent was only a 4th grade talent, it was very close to a 5th grade talent. It was even more noble than Lin Ling's God's Eye. Although Lin Ling had a 5th grade talent, Luo Wuchang's talent was even more noble. Most importantly, his realm was higher. Bang! Green light flickered, and the atmosphere was magnificent. The green armored giant stood up, and with a shake of his burly body, he struck out with his palm. Behind Luo Wuchang, a pair of green wings appeared. They were extremely dazzling, as if they were formed from countless plants. This allowed him to arrive in front of Lin Ling in an instant, and he slapped out with a devastating palm strike. Daluo Valurium King, invincible. Lin Ling mumbled to himself. He had some impression of this talent. In the past, when Li Xiaoyao was a genius of the 9 prefectures, he had also met a genius of the 9 prefectures. Bang! Lin Ling also threw out a punch. At their level, sometimes a clash of strength was the most direct and effective way to deal with it. As Lin Ling punched out, his eyes flashed as the Spacetime Divine Steel arrived. One had to admit that this method was indeed impossible to guard against. Luo Wuchang resisted Lin Ling's punch and wanted to suppress Lin Ling, but the Spacetime Divine Steel descended from the sky. This made him give up on Lin Ling and punch into the sky, and the sound waves erupted. This sound wave was so terrifying that it could easily collapse thousands of worlds. Rumble. However, the result was the same as before. Luo Wuchang retreated again. Everyone was shocked again. Luo Wuchang's talent had erupted, and his realm was so high, but he still couldn't resist the spacetime divine steel? The spacetime divine steel was too heaven-defying. Moreover, this didn't conform to common sense, unless Lin Ling's realm essence was not much weaker than Luo Wuchang's. How could they know that Lin Ling's realm essence was indeed not much weaker than Luo Wuchang's? Lin Ling's expression was still calm. His eyes flashed and the spacetime divine steel appeared above Luo Wuchang's head again. Moreover, Lin Ling also rushed forward and punched out with the godly demon body. Luo Wuchang knew that he had been locked on. He roared, Daluo glazed boundary. Countless green lights shot out, and the giant behind him suddenly raised its two heads to the sky. Circles of green ripples bloomed from its body. Rumble. The spacetime divine steel was blocked. At the same time Lin Ling's punch arrived, but when it hit Luo Wuchang's body, it was as if it had hit a divine armor that was as hard as a city. You can't break my defense. Luo Wuchang looked straight at Lin Ling and said indifferently. The green-armored giant behind him still had its hands raised to the sky, but circles of green ripples bloomed, and the scene of countless plants growing appeared around them. The Daluo glazed king was said to be one of the gods who controlled plants during the era of gods. Wherever there were plants he would not die, so he was called undefeated. To defeat him, one had to have a true fifth-grade ultimate desolate body, a god's bloodline, and the realm of a martial ancestor. Can't break it? Impossible. However, Lin Ling shook his head and floated back. His blue robe fluttered and the roar of a dragon could be heard. A dragon god roared and circled around Lin Ling before transforming into a 5-meter-long dragon bone bow. Its aura was extremely ferocious. First arrow, Heavenly Dragon's protection. Second arrow, Gather His Majesty's cause. Third arrow, Gods and Ghosts assist. Fourth arrow, Eternal Karmic path. Fifth arrow, Myriad Buddha's greeting. Ancient Buddhist chants sounded at the same time. Countless dragon god arrows were shot out, and thousands of arrows crisscrossed the martial platform. Around the martial platform, everyone stood up. This was the first time many of them were seeing Lin Ling use the dragon bow. One of the 8 divine powers of the dragon race, Calamity Vanquishing Sun Bow. The dean also stood up and exclaimed. The 8 divine powers of the dragon race required the bloodline of the dragon race to be used. Could it be that Lin Ling had the bloodline of the dragon race? This guy actually has 2 talents. It seems that our Snow Wind Academy has 5 people with the bloodline of the dragon race. Furthermore, there are 2 in Teacher Cailuan's class. One is Zhuang Yanming and the other is Lin Ling. Although they have impure bloodlines of the dragon race has disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years. It is extremely difficult to obtain their bloodline. The vice dean also said excitedly. Dragon race bloodline. On Teacher Cailuan's side, Zhuang Yanming also muttered to himself. In his heart, he was not sure if Lin Ling's bloodline was the purest, but it was definitely purer than his. At this moment, the dragon god swords shot towards Luo Wuchang. They were swift and sharp, pushing him back. What kind of technique is this? Why is it so fierce? Exclamation point. Luo Wuchang constantly blocked the attacks. He was shocked as if he had encountered a real dragon god. Looking from the martial platform, the scene was extremely spectacular. Countless arrows were constantly attacking Luo Wuchang, densely packed and magnificent. This caused Luo Wuchang to get closer and closer to the edge of the martial platform. If he fell off the martial platform, he would lose without a doubt. Luo Wuchang also noticed this. He roared in his heart. He must hold on, these arrows are about to end. Once this load is over, he will win. However, at this moment, the spacetime divine steel smashed down from the sky like the palm of a god. This spacetime divine steel was even more terrifying than before. 10% of the ancestral power also descended. Chapter 3479. A true 5th grade ultimate desolate body. Under the combined attacks of the spacetime divine steel and the dragon god's arrow, Luo Wuchang could no longer withstand it. He was sent flying off the stage and smashed into the ground. His face was filled with disbelief. Luo Wuchang had been defeated. The crowd immediately fell silent. Moments later, all sorts of voices could be heard. No one expected Lin Ling to win, and in such a straightforward manner. There was not even a prolonged battle. He had completely suppressed Luo Wuchang throughout the entire process. And such a powerful move even caused the experts of the 3rd hall to lock onto the battle. Their expressions were extremely solemn. As for Luo Wuchang, he sat by the side of the stage. The green light on his body had dimmed. He constantly shook his head as though he was still unable to react. Only when a voice confirmed that Lin Ling had won did he raise his head in disbelief and look at the blue-robed youth on the stage. How could I have lost? He muttered to himself. 10% of the power of ancestors. Lin Ling has become the 23rd expert in the third hall with the power of ancestors. A teacher's voice sounded. The power of ancestors. Luo Wuchang's pupils violently trembled. The power of ancestors. Lin Ling also possessed the power of ancestors. One had to know that the power of ancestors was comprehended by martial ancestors with limited talent. As for young people like them, most of them had worked hard on their talent. The power of ancestors had yet to be born. This was because they had limited time. It was impossible for them to improve their talent and comprehend the power of ancestors. However, Lin Ling's talent had improved, and he had even comprehended the power of ancestors. Luo Wuchang's heart roared. He stared at Lin Ling and said, "The power of ancestors, a 5th-grade spacetime divine steel, and the means of the dragon race. I accept my loss wholeheartedly. However, in 10 years at the third hall, let's fight again." For Luo Wuchang to become one of the best in the third hall, his will was naturally not weak. He knew that he had to be courageous after being humiliated. 10 years. Lin Ling calmly shook his head. With his current growth rate, he would be an expert of the third hall in 10 years. He was no longer interested in the battles of the third hall. However, he did not explain. He turned and left. However, Luo Wuchang glared at him with anger in his eyes. "Lin Ling, son of the devil, what do you mean by this? Are you disdaining to fight me?" He thought that Lin Ling looked down on him. 10 years later, if you want to fight me, then wait until you enter the Shinsan Hall. At this time, Lin Ling's ethereal voice finally floated over, leaving Luo Wuchang stunned. 10 years? Lin Ling actually planned to use 10 years to enter the Shinsan Hall? Heavens, what is this guy thinking? One had to know that the strong cultivators of the Shinsan Hall had been training at the Snow Wind Academy for at least 3,000 years. Moreover, they were the best of the best. This meant that if they wanted to enter the Shinsan Hall, they would need at least 3,000 years. But if they were weaker, they might not be able to succeed even after 3,000 years. They would still be able to enter the Shinsan Hall. Therefore, if Luo Wuchang wanted to fight Lin Ling again, he would have to become an expert of the third hall. The time was only 10 years. Luo Wuchang lost his confidence in an instant. It turned out that Lin Ling did not disdain to fight with him, but he wanted to catch up with Lin Ling's footsteps. This Lin Ling is really powerful. He amazes everyone with a single brilliant feat. Looking at Lin Ling's departure, the dean praised. He thought that this battle would last for a long time, but it ended so quickly that it was beyond his imagination. Yes, even I was surprised. You know, he hasn't even been in the Snow Wind Academy for 5 years. The vice dean also sighed. After this battle, the Shinyi Hall also broke out into a fierce battle. Unfortunately, the one who won the first place was not from Lin Ling's class. Looking at the Shinsan Hall again, the battle was extremely fierce. All kinds of ancestor power and powerful talents emerged one after another, shocking everyone. After a long time, the battle of the Shinsan Hall also ended, leaving many people with a rich aftertaste. Only the battle of the Shinsan Hall continued. Although the battle of the Shinsan Hall was not as fierce as the battle of the Shinsan Hall, many people were still looking forward to it. The reason was Lin Ling. The number of experts in the Shinsan Hall was getting fewer and fewer. Not long after, it was Lin Ling's turn to fight again. His opponent was called Jianghu, and he was also one of the top 10 experts in the Shinsan Hall. However, just like before, Lin Ling used the spacetime divine steel and 10,000 elephant demon eyes and easily defeated him. "I'm convinced," Jianghu said with a sigh. Because Lin Ling became an expert of the Shinsan Hall because of the freshman trial, but even he was defeated, how could he not be convinced? Perhaps, Lin Ling was about to become the representative of the Snow Wind Academy and compete with the other 35 academies. Jianghu was also defeated. Except for Tianao, no one could stop Lin Ling's rise. The final battle of the Shinsan Hall was quietly approaching. On the martial arts stage, Lin Ling and Tianao looked at each other indifferently. All the competition zones had ended, which caused everyone to pay attention to this battle. Nervousness, anticipation, and excitement spread. Teacher Cailuan, Chu Yun, Fairy Xan Yen and the others held their palms together, their palms full of sweat. They hoped that Lin Ling would win the final battle. "Son of the devil, Lin Ling, if I defeat you, I should be able to become the disciple of Wentian martial god." In the silence, Tianao was the first to speak. "You can become anyone's disciple, but you have to become Wenian martial god. It seems that I have to wake you up. The new heavenly court is not as strong as you think. Lin Ling said indifferently. Wenian martial god's strength is not something you can understand. After I defeat you, you will understand everything. Tianao shook his head. He was not angry and his face was extremely calm. Previously they all said that they would defeat me, but they all lost in the end. Therefore such words are quite boring. Of course, I will let you be like them and become a braggart. Furthermore, I will make you too ashamed to join the new heavenly court and you will obediently withdraw. Lin Ling smiled. He did not have a good impression of the new heavenly court. However, because this was the final world, the new heavenly court did not dare to kill him easily. Similarly, he could not kill the new heavenly court's people easily. Therefore, he planned to defeat them and deal a fatal blow to the new heavenly court, preventing them from recruiting experts. Hearing this, Tianao smiled. He was still not angry. It could be seen that he did not have a strong sense of belonging to the new heavenly court. He was only there because of its reputation. Unfortunately, I am not them. Tianao finally spat out a sentence. After he finished speaking, he displayed his talent. His cultivation was at the second level of the martial ancestor realm, but his talent was extremely terrifying. Grade 5 Ultimate Desolate Body. This is a true Grade 5 talent. Although Lin Ling's Spacetime God Eye is Grade 5, it is not an orthodox Grade 5 talent. On the other hand, Tianao has the true bloodline of a god. It seems that Lin Ling has lost. There is no way he can win. Both of them have Grade 5 Ultimate Desolate Bodies, but Tianao's is obviously much stronger than Lin Ling's. After the aura exploded, the divine hall was shaken. Everyone was shocked. Even Lin Ling felt a strong pressure. Grade 5 talent. Chapter 3480. Azura Divine Treasury. As for Lin Ling's Spacetime God Eye, although it was also a Grade 5 God Eye, it had been activated after birth. Otherwise, its potential would have never reached Grade 5. While everyone was still in shock, Tianao was still activating his talent. The light of God shone brightly and the sky was filled with stars. It was as if the gods were singing. Azura Divine Treasury. This was an extremely rare innate talent. It wasn't a bloodline, it wasn't a beast, and it wasn't the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was the Netherworld's Azura Divine Treasury. This was God's armory. In the sky behind Tianao, countless divine weapons were flying. There were swords, sabers, ancient pagodas, horsetail whisks, etc. Tianao was like a superior god who controlled the divine weapon. Such a talent was undoubtedly even more shocking to the crowd. How was this still a human? This was simply a god. Lin Ling was also surprised. This was the first time he had seen such a talent. At this moment, Tianao was standing on the battle stage. He looked at Lin Ling calmly as if he had seen through the world. His chi became more and more terrifying. Divine weapons circled around him, forming a ferocious storm. This storm enveloped Tianao's body, causing him to become somewhat hazy. The surroundings instantly became quiet. However, Lin Ling knew that this was only the calm before the storm. The storm might arrive in an instant. If you can block one of my attacks, you can compete with me for first place and you can even force me out of the new heavenly court. But if you can't, you don't even have the right to let me look at you. At this moment, Tianao's voice finally floated out from the god's storm. In the next moment, the god's tempest began to churn, and countless swords, sabers, and spears shot out. Quick! It had already reached the speed of 400 worlds. Everyone had the same feeling. With such a powerful talent, it was as if those swords were being held by a god. Lin Ling couldn't possibly block them. Lin Ling was going to lose. Just as this thought arose, many people saw Lin Ling's body being pierced through by those swords. He couldn't be more dead. At this moment, everyone was shocked. But very quickly, those swords and sabers started dancing again, as if they were looking for a new enemy, because on the martial platform, another Lin Ling appeared. Following that, more and more Lin Ling appeared. In the end, Lin Ling's figures were everywhere. The martial platform also began to change. It was full of vitality and hundreds of flowers bloomed. How was this still a martial platform? It was simply a whole new world. Tianao was stunned. He had the strongest talent and his cultivation level was higher than Lin Ling's. He thought that he could defeat Lin Ling in one move, but Lin Ling dodged it. What? Lin Ling dodged it? Heavens! What is this? Why are there so many Lin Ling? Could it be an external incarnation technique or an illusion? Many people were also shocked. This was originally a one-sided battle, but there was actually a turning point. Even the dean and the others were stunned. They looked carefully at the changes on the martial platform, and then their faces changed drastically. Because they thought that those were external incarnations, but they didn't look like it. They thought that they were illusions, but everything was vivid and lifelike. Most importantly, the reason why they couldn't see through them was that all the Lin linings seemed to be alive and capable of fighting. As for those flowers and plants, they were naturally real. Could it be that this guy created a world? This is the method of a god. The vice dean shook his head continuously. At their level, external incarnations and illusions couldn't affect them. But if it was to create a world, it was a different story. This was because cultivators were originally situated within the universal void, and no one was able to surpass these laws. If you created a world and others entered your world, then they would definitely be affected by your world, and their strength would be weakened by a few degrees. Unfortunately, no one knew that this was Lin Ling's illusion god true inheritance, the illusion god world. You blocked my move. Not bad, not bad. I admit that you have the qualifications to fight with me, but only the qualifications. After being surprised, Tianao said indifferently, although your method is very powerful and can display outstanding results in a life and death battle, we are fighting on the martial platform. Your strength is not as good as mine. I only need to defeat all the Lin Ling that I create, then you will lose. He obviously couldn't see through this world, but he planned to use brute force to break it. After saying that, he pushed with both hands and the weapons belonging to gods shot out majestically. And they could continuously split. One sword became 2 and gradually became 4. So was the spear. These divine weapons shot towards Lin Ling's world, killing all the Lin Ling in the world. It was simply unstoppable. Gradually, only one Lin Ling appeared. At this moment, everyone's eyes lit up. This must be the real Lin Ling. There was no way to avoid it. Ah! Tianao suddenly smiled faintly and shouted, "Sword, come!" A sword immediately appeared in his hand. After being grasped by him, he shot towards Lin Ling. Behind him, countless divine weapons also shot towards Lin Ling. The scene was extremely spectacular. Rumble. However, at this moment the space-time divine steel appeared in the sky. After smashing down, it was immediately blocked by countless divine weapons. The invincible space-time divine steel actually failed. This also showed how powerful Tianao's talent was. And Tianao was even more certain that the final person was Lin Ling's real body. Now let's see how Lin Ling will block it. However, at this moment the dragon bow appeared and countless dragon god arrows shot over. This method made Tianao take it seriously, but that was it. He shouted, "Go!" It was as if an armory had opened behind him. Divine shields, divine chariots, divine cannons and other weapons also rushed towards the countless dragon gods. With these divine weapons blocking, he was getting closer and closer to Lin Ling. "You've used up all your tricks. Let's see how you block me." Tianao smiled. When he arrived in front of Lin Ling, he viciously slashed down with his sword. It was as if a god sword was splitting the world. However, at this moment, Lin Ling's hand touched his back and he shouted, "Sword, come!" With the tyrannical song sword in hand, murderous and demonic aura surged out. Clang! The two swords collided, and the deafening sound was like a battle between the divine and demonic swords. The smile on Tianao's face turned into disdain. Lin Ling's lousy sword can block me? However, his smile quickly froze because he realized that the sword in Lin Ling's hand suddenly became huge. Demonic aura surged as if the demon ancestor had arrived. This is the ancestral power? Tianao was shocked. Moreover, this ancestral power continued to increase. 10%, 20%, 30%. How is this possible? He's only in the sage realm. How can he have such a huge amount of ancestral power? Tianao felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his mind was buzzing. At this moment, the sword and the sword both reached the peak of their power. A blinding light burst out, forming a terrifying storm that swept across the universe. Then the two figures were sent flying. This powerful collision undoubtedly shocked the entire temple. Then many people rubbed their eyes and looked over. Only then did they realize that Lin Ling had retreated more than 300 meters. Chapter 3481. The Observer of God. This meant that Tianao was at a disadvantage in the clash of the two swords. When this result came out, everyone looked as if they had seen a ghost. Some of the experts from Shinair Hall slapped themselves in the face, afraid that they were dreaming. This was because Tianao was publicly acknowledged as the strongest in Shinair Hall. On the other hand, Lin Ling was a new disciple and was only a saint. The loser should be Lin Ling. Luo Wuchang, who was defeated by Lin Ling earlier, had his mouth wide open. Even though he had lost earlier, he was still unconvinced. But now he was convinced. Could it be the ancestral power? That sword should have provided a powerful ancestral power, but how could Lin Ling control such a powerful ancestral power with his cultivation? The headmaster was also frowning. Only Lin Ling knew that the ancestral power of the tyrannical Song sword had been unsealed. However, he couldn't use it to its limit unless he had the approval of the sword hilt. But even without using all of the ancestral power, Lin Ling felt that with this sword in hand, he could rule the world. He raised his eyes and smiled at Tian'ao. Tian'ao, if you really want to be Wenian martial god's disciple, let me remind you, it's better for you to be Wenian martial god's disciple. Sigh. Compared to Lin Ling's calmness, Tian'ao was starting to get irritated because he couldn't defeat Lin Ling. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Who?" Sigh. "Of course it's me, but I'm not familiar with you. If you want to be my disciple, I'll have to think about it." Sigh. Lin Ling said in a serious tone. He was telling the truth because Wenian martial god was trained by him. It was just that Wenian martial god had cultivated for a longer time, which was why he was so strong. You bastard. Sigh. However, Tian'ao thought that Lin Ling was mocking him and was furious. Moreover, he wanted to be Lin Ling's disciple, but Lin Ling said that he would have to think about it. How arrogant. Tian'ao controlled countless divine weapons and charged towards Lin Ling. Seeing this, Lin Ling shook his head. Tian'ao, who had always been calm, had lost his rationality. From this point of view, Tian'ao had already lost half the battle. Lin Ling gripped the Tyrant Song sword tightly and activated his 5 dantians, relying on his God-fiend body to resist the attack. The space-time divine steel also smashed down from time to time. Occasionally, Lin Ling would use the illusion god True Inheritance. For a moment, the two of them were locked in battle. If this goes on, Tian'ao won't be able to win against Lin Ling. The dean and the others frowned. Lin Ling looked like he was being suppressed by Tian'ao. However, anyone could tell that he was still calm and collected. On the contrary, the more Tian'ao fought, the more aggrieved he became. It was as if he was suppressing some kind of anger in his heart. He flew back and said calmly, "Lin Ling, I'm going to use all my talents. Let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better give it your all or you'll lose." He knew very well that according to the current situation, the outcome would not be determined in 2 hours. However, Lin Ling looked very calm. It was likely that he was still hiding some powerful means. Many people had guessed this and were extremely curious about it. After Tian'ao finished speaking, he opened his hands and divine light enveloped the stage. At that moment he was like a noble son of God. The divine weapons that seemed to come from the underworld flew towards him in a beautiful trajectory. Finally, they turned into a large blob of golden light. Tian'ao had disappeared. Lin Ling's eyes constantly flickered. This was the first time he had seen a 5th-grade ultimate desolate body that could be used to the extreme. And this was also the means of a powerful martial ancestor. If it were an ordinary martial ancestor, they would mainly use the power of their ancestors. After all, not everyone's ultimate desolate body could reach the 5th grade. The golden light gradually shrunk and turned into a golden eggshell about a meter in size. When the eggshell appeared, the entire temple seemed to fall silent. However, soon a crisp sound could be heard. The eggshell cracked and following that, a palm reached out from the eggshell. What is this? Everyone was alarmed. Tian'ao seemed to be transforming. Furthermore, they realized that the palm was wearing a steel glove. It gave off an extremely dignified feeling. Kacha. The eggshell kept cracking as if a powerful god was being born. When the eggshell completely shattered, a burly figure finally appeared in front of everyone. This person was wearing majestic divine armor. He wore a helmet and combat boots. There were many runic seals on the armor. However, if one looked carefully, they could vaguely see the shapes of swords and sabers. Shwa. At the same time, a roar came from behind this person. A pair of 5-meter-long wings spread open. Upon closer inspection, these wings were formed by countless spears and swords. It was majestic. Sky warrior? Or an Azura warrior? The way I see it, this is a living example of a holy knight of God. After the crowd recovered from their shock, they immediately let out a series of exclamations. Even Lin Ling frowned. He realized that Tian'ao had completely unleashed his talent. All the weapons of God had melted into the armor. This technique was really mysterious. Perhaps Tian'ao had obtained a technique left behind by God in a secret realm. That was how he had mastered this technique. At this moment, A whistling sound could be heard from the front. Countless golden lights burst out. Tianao had disappeared. However, Lin Ling knew that it was not that Tianao had disappeared. He had made his move. His speed had reached an unimaginable level. It was definitely above 500 worlds. The speed of 500 worlds was something that Lin Ling could only achieve when he fused with his talent. Space-time tablet. Lin Ling's eyes caught a ray of golden light in front of him. The space-time tablet was indeed worthy of its name. It actually caught up with Tianao. A rumbling sound could be heard. However, Tianao punched the sky and the huge tablet was immediately sent flying. Terrifying. They were both fifth-grade talents, but the space-time tablet was unable to withstand a single blow. This also showed how powerful Tianao's talent was. Illusory God World. Lin Ling was not surprised. He shouted again. These techniques are useless against me. I have obtained the Observer's technique. An observer who can cultivate to become a god. You are no match for me. Tianao shook his head in the face of the illusions around him. His entire body spun like a top. The huge wings behind him shot out countless swords and spears. It was like a sword storm. Bang bang bang. The swords and spears shot out in all directions. All the illusions were immediately destroyed. This shocked everyone. Tianao had become too powerful. An observer? Could it be that he was the sacred knight of God who observed Jojo on behalf of God? Tianao disappeared again. The next moment he appeared in front of Lin Ling. A long spear with endless golden light attacked fiercely. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He immediately slashed forward with his tyrant song. However, after Tianao transformed into an observer, his strength was indeed much stronger. Under the attack of the spear, Lin Ling was immediately sent flying. Moreover, the blood in Lin Ling's body was surging. It was obvious that he had suffered some injuries. Chapter 3482. Lin Ling's Dragon Race Bloodline. After Qinao's attack, he did not follow up with another attack. Instead, he looked at Lin Ling in shock. From his point of view, Lin Ling could not block his spear. But now Lin Ling was only pushed back. Even if he was injured, it did not seem serious. What kind of technique did this sage Lin Ling have to hide? How could his defense be so terrifying? The dean and deputy dean were also shocked. The surrounding people were the same. Only teacher Cailuan and the rest were worried. Lin Ling had already reached the final step. He could not be defeated. At this moment, Qinao pointed his spear at Lin Ling and said calmly, Lin Ling, are you still not planning on using your final move? Or do you not have such a technique? Let me tell you, with your current state, you have no chance of winning. Also, after defeating you, you will become my proof of allegiance, allowing me to become heaven-seeking martial god's disciple. Don't mention that trash. I will not stop you from acknowledging a dog as your master, but that trash will not allow it. Hearing this, Lin Ling finally spoke. You boast shamelessly. Qinao was immediately enraged. Heaven-seeking martial god, whom he admired the most, was not even comparable to a dog. He was even treated as trash by Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling completely ignored his words and said coolly, since you want to see my ultimate move so much, then fine, I'll show it. With that said, everyone looked at Lin Ling. Qinao also frowned. He was only guessing previously, but he never expected Lin Ling to really hide his final move. At this moment, smoke began to billow out from Lin Ling's body. It was as if he was burning. His soul power extended out like tentacles and began to fuse with his talent. The heavenly dragon's bones rushed out from his body and hovered in the billowing smoke. That dragon's might shocked the entire temple. Although the heavenly dragon's bones were still a first-grade ultimate desolate body, Lin Ling had refined many dragon bones in the rainbow world. He was many times stronger than before. Therefore, the moment this heavenly dragon appeared, everyone was shocked. In the Snow Wind Academy, there were 5 people who possessed the bloodline of the dragon clan. But under the heavenly dragon they felt an enormous pressure. Because that was the true dragon clan, and they were merely a subspecies of the dragon god bloodline. The purest dragon bloodline. Could he be a member of the dragon race? A teacher shouted with a trembling voice. The dragon race. The dragon clan that had disappeared for hundreds of thousands of years. The entire temple seemed to have been overturned. Everyone was shouting excitedly, as if they were the ones who possessed the dragon bloodline. The purest dragon bloodline was extremely rare in the final world. It was no wonder they were shocked. However, was that all the shock? After the heavenly dragon circled the sky once, it charged into the smoke of the martial stage. However, at this moment, a violent wind appeared and transformed into a dragon. The wind follows the dragon, the cloud follows the tiger. The dragon god formed by the violent winds rushed into the sky above the temple. Another one? Before everyone could recover from their shock, another wave of shock struck their hearts. Because they noticed that the dragon god formed by the violent winds was the real purest bloodline. One dragon bloodline was already very shocking, but Lin Ling had two. Swish, swish, swish. The dean and the vice dean also stood up in surprise at this moment. As for Tsang Chiri and the old woman, they were also surprised. Although they knew that Lin Ling's strength was not weak, they did not expect that Lin Ling's two dragon god bloodlines were the purest. The potential of these two bloodlines was very strong, not weaker than Tianao's. At this moment, endless sludge also surged out and actually swallowed the two dragon gods. If one looked carefully, the sludge had an enormous ominous aura, which actually made many people tremble in fear. Another talent. How many talents does this guy have? Someone noticed the murderous aura emitted by the sludge and could not help but stand up. Then he pointed at Lin Ling with his mouth wide open, completely speechless. What a terrifying murderous aura! The potential of this talent is also not to be underestimated. I did not expect that there would be such a monster in our class. Teacher Tsailuan seemed to be a little numb, but her heart was wild with joy. 3 talents, and all of them were the most ancient talents. There were not many of them in the 36 academies. The dragon god bloodline and the murderous bloodline. How does Lin Ling have so many talents? Moreover, he has mastered so many talents. Does he have enough boundary essence? At this moment, Tianao was the most surprised, and in addition to his surprise, there was also a strong sense of jealousy. He only had 1 powerful talent, while Lin Ling had 3. No, it should be 4. How could he not be jealous? Of course, it wasn't just him. The flames of envy burned in the eyes of all the experts from the 3rd hall. Even though Lin Ling's current strength couldn't compare to them, it was only a matter of time before he caught up to them with his natural talent. Why did these talents not belong to them? All the experts were roaring in their hearts. Your talent is terrifying, but if you are not strong enough, everything is just paper. Come, let's have the final clash. Tianao suppressed his surprise and said indifferently. He did not dare to underestimate Lin Ling, so he used his strongest move. The wings behind his back wrapped around him and golden light shone brightly. Once again, it turned into a golden eggshell, but with a strong divine aura. It was as if a god was alive. The people around the stage all felt the pressure. Some teachers even muttered to themselves, Ancestors' power has been born at least 30%. 30%, 20%, it is sometimes high and sometimes low. It is extremely strange. The other teachers were also shocked. They were all curious about Tianao's strongest move. Boom. Almost at the same time, the golden eggshell exploded, and countless weapons swept out from all directions with the eggshell as the center. It felt as if a storm had suddenly exploded. It was as if a god had self-destructed his cultivation. Heavens, he actually used all the weapons in the Azura Divine Treasury to attack the enemy. Moreover, those weapons that were shot out contained Ancestors' power. Many people cried out in shock, because they saw that the various divine weapons that erupted actually cracked the martial stage's divine enchantment formation. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Ling. At present, Lin Ling had nowhere to run, so how would he face it? Then people saw several divine spears with Ancestors' power shooting into the billowing smoke where Lin Ling was. They were afraid that Lin Ling would be seriously injured. Brr. But at this moment, a monstrous roar came out, and the smoke began to disperse and a huge black mountain appeared. No, it was not a mountain but an extremely strange giant. This giant's body was pitch black like a demon king, but his shoulders and limbs were in the shape of a dragon, and he was hundreds of meters tall, giving people a strong sense of shock. Looking at the giant's head, people were surprised to find that the giant's facial features were somewhat delicate, and coupled with the demon king's body, it gave people a very harmonious feeling. Crack. Chapter 3483. The Battle of the Shrine had ended. This? At this moment even the dean exclaimed. What kind of strength was needed to destroy a divine weapon with ancestral power? Could it be the power of the 3,000 worlds? How could he know that Lin Ling's transformation had reached the power of 5,000 worlds? Although there was no ancestral power and no large amount of world essence, his physical strength was enough to destroy everything. This was the method to cultivate the physical strength to the limit. Like a dragon and a demon. What? Tianao floated in the sky, and his expression changed slightly. Brr. But at this moment, a huge monster pounced over with a speed of 500 worlds. This caused Tianao's heart to thump, and a sense of fear rose in his heart. Destroy the world. Roar. He roared, and all the divine weapons in the Azura divine treasury attacked Lin Ling. Even if a real god was here, he would be killed. Looking from outside the martial stage, the scene was extremely shocking. One was a god, the other was a demon. It was as if they had returned to the great war of gods and demons thousands of years ago. However, the monster seemed to not know what fear was. He raised his dragon claws and swept in all directions. Boom, boom. Those divine weapons were actually all destroyed. Gusts of terrifying astral wind swept in all directions at the same time, causing Tianao's face to change greatly. The fear in his heart also became stronger. He shouted in a low voice, spread his wings and flew to the other side with him. That monster was too terrifying and he had no choice but to dodge. But could he leave just because he wanted to? Just as he appeared on the other side, a huge demon god appeared there. Its speed was slightly faster than his and it threw a punch at him. This punch was like the collapse of heaven and earth, and it could destroy 10,000 worlds. It could even destroy Jianghu. In Tianao's eyes, the punch was like a myriad of worlds and it was constantly expanding. He immediately sensed the smell of death. He did not expect that he, who had such a powerful talent, would feel the smell of death when facing a Sage Realm expert. I admit defeat. At the critical moment, Tianao shouted. After shouting, he became dispirited as if all his strength had disappeared. Perhaps he had originally thought that he would definitely obtain first place, but the final result had exceeded his imagination, causing him to suffer a huge blow. Admit defeat? Tianao, who possessed a 5th grade talent and a cultivation of the 2nd layer martial progenitor realm, had surrendered. Moreover, his opponent was only a new student and he was only at the Saint realm. The temple was in an uproar. Everyone was caught in a state of shock and disbelief. I never expected that even my son would lose. It's really unbelievable. Logically speaking, Lin Ling's ultimate desolate body may be powerful, but its level is not high enough. He should not have been able to win. However, I don't know what divine technique he has cultivated, but he managed to stack all his talents together. My son's loss is not unjustified. The dean said with a sigh. That's right. This son of the demon Lin Ling is really not simple. Perhaps the battle of the divine princes of the 36 colleges will be his showpiece. The vice dean sighed and glanced at Song Chiri. He still remembered that Song Chiri had said that no one was qualified to accept Lin Ling as their disciple. Now he somewhat understood what Song Chiri meant. At that time he will be the pride of Snow Wind City and Snow Wind Academy. The vice dean could not help but laugh. He laughed excitedly. Snow Wind Academy was only the starting point of Lin Ling, the son of the demon. Perhaps, in the future, Lin Ling would become one of the true gods of war. I hereby announce that the first place of the Shin Second Hall is Lin Ling. At this moment, the vice dean stood up and announced. As expected, the entire temple was in an uproar again. Currently, among the 3 competition zones, the Shin Second Hall's competition zone was the most intense, and the most unpredictable. He won. On teacher Tsiluan's side, everyone laughed. Chu Yun, Fairy Xan Yen, and Earring stared at the tall giant on the battle platform with strange expressions in their eyes. They were the true daughters of the gods of the 9 states. Generally speaking, very few people could enter their eyes. This was because there were very few men with strength, temperament, and appearance. But now, the demon-like man on the battle platform had undoubtedly fulfilled the conditions in their hearts. He was someone they could only look up to and be attracted to. Aha, the young master really won. On the dean's side, although Tsang Chiri knew that Lin Ling would definitely win, he was still extremely happy to witness this battle with his own eyes. Beside him, the old woman also nodded with a smile. In this way, Lin Ling's first task of the divine trial had been successfully completed. After the first place of the Shin Second Hall was confirmed, the academy began to give out the rewards. Everyone received 1 billion royal crystals and could enter the Dragon Space Valley to cultivate once. When the rewards were given out, the dean personally spoke a few words of praise to Lin Ling. This made the other 2 first places extremely jealous. This was because they were also first place, but they could not receive the rewards from the dean. Unfortunately, Lin Ling looked indifferent. Instead, he stared at the rewards and was excited. 1 billion royal crystals, plus the 10 billion royal crystals that he had obtained in the Intentionless City, he could enter the 7th stage of the Sage Realm. After that, Lin Ling left a word of thanks and turned to leave the stage. This made teacher Xiluan and the rest shake their heads. This was because Lin Ling rarely appeared in the Snow Wind Academy. Now that he had won the first place, he did not even say a few words to the academy and left after receiving the rewards. This made them speechless. Especially the dean, he was the most embarrassed and could only laugh loudly. After Lin Ling walked down, a voice called out to him. It was Tianao. Lin Ling, I have lost this battle. However, it won't be long before I defeat you. Tianao looked at Lin Ling with fear. Perhaps in his mind, he still regarded Lin Ling as a monster. If you can't enter the Shen Third Hall in 10 years, I think we should forget about this battle. Lin Ling smiled and looked at him calmly as he spoke. Don't worry, within 10 years I will enter the Shen Third Hall, Tianao said solemnly. After hesitating for a while, he gritted his teeth and said, If you win, I promise you that I will withdraw from the new heavenly court. How about that? After he finished speaking, Lin Ling looked at him strangely. Then he smiled and nodded. He turned to leave and said at the same time, You are teachable. Tianao's mouth fell open. Teachable? Lin Ling used the tone of a senior to speak to him again. You are infuriating me. Tianao clenched his teeth. That guy is a bastard. You want to be martial god when Tian's disciple? To be honest, you should be my disciple. Of course, I am still considering whether to accept you as my disciple or not. However, you are a man of your words. I have changed my view of you. Perhaps in the future I will accept you as my disciple. Lin Ling's voice came again. Tianao was so angry that his face turned black. Lin Ling looked younger than him. How dare he accept him as his disciple? However, he was not as strong as Lin Ling and he had nothing to say. He only hoped that he would become stronger in the future and defeat Lin Ling. He wanted to let Lin Ling know that he was still far from being his master. Chapter 3484. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio heading to Dragon Space Valley. Coming out of the Snow Wind Academy, Lin Ling led Xiao Yu and the others forward and soon returned to the courtyard. The old lady and Song Chiri followed Lin Ling. They seemed to be even more respectful to Lin Ling. This was because they had finally seen Lin Ling's powerful potential. Lin Ling, congratulations on becoming the #1 in Shen Air Hall. The old lady was the first to speak. She then smiled and said, You can train in Dragon Space Valley after 3 days. It's an extremely strange place. Everything is empty and there are many mysterious forces in the universe. You have to make good use of this opportunity. Dragon Space Valley? What's that? Lin Ling was suddenly curious. The so-called Dragon Space Valley is located in a void in the universe. It was created by a deity. It is said that it was the place where a great deity became a deity. Therefore, it is filled with all kinds of mysterious forces. There have been people who have improved their cultivation and talents in it. There are also people who have obtained divine weapons and so on. Everything depends on fate. Moreover, Dragon Space Valley is shared by all 36 academies. Therefore, if you enter Dragon Space Valley, there is a high chance that you will meet experts from other academies. Of course, each academy can only send 3 people in. Therefore, under normal circumstances, you won't meet any experts. The old lady continued to speak. Lin Ling immediately looked forward to it. What he wanted to improve the most now was his physical strength. It would be great if he could obtain treasures like dragon bones and dragon blood. After pondering for a while, he decided to leave his breakthrough in Dragon Space Valley. This was because he could save a lot of royal crystals. Lin Ling, you have completed one of the divine trial missions. Earlier, Lei Gong had arranged for me to let you take on the 2nd mission. Moreover, the other 9 participants are currently in the 3rd mission. There are even some who are in the 5th mission. Therefore you have to work harder. The old lady said again. Lin Ling was immediately curious about who the other participants were. To be able to become Lei Gong's participants, their strength should not be much weaker than his. What is the 2nd mission? Lin Ling asked hurriedly. Find the World Organization and destroy them. Take back the world will. The old lady's face turned serious as she said faintly. Will of the world? It wasn't the first time that Lin Ling had heard this phrase, and his curiosity grew. Yes. The old woman nodded. The will of the world is spread throughout the 9 continents in the universe. It is the most terrifying existence. Moreover, it has many successors. Some of these successors are strong and some are weak. The mission that Lei Gong assigned to you is to eliminate one of the successors. That successor is stronger than you, but you still have a chance to obtain the will of the world. As for that world's organization, we will find it for you. What you need to do is to go alone and seize the world's will. Remember, you are not the only one seizing the world's will. There are other trial challengers and some of them are not even Lei Gong's people. Therefore you must succeed. You cannot disgrace Lei Gong. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. The only thing he could do now was to wait for news from the old woman. And during this period of time he could also increase his strength. After explaining Lei Gong's mission, the old woman and Song Qiri chatted with Lin Ling. Song Qiri felt that Lin Ling's courtyard was extraordinary. Lin Ling's talent showed signs of improvement. Lin Ling also explained a little. However, he felt that as he set up the array, the power of the spiritual marrow became stronger and stronger. It began to spread out of the courtyard. This would definitely attract the attention of other experts. Therefore, in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Lin Ling planned to buy all the nearby courtyards. That night, the old woman and the others stayed in Lin Ling's courtyard to accompany Lin Ling for dinner. Xiaoyu was extremely happy. She ran around innocently, which made the old woman, who had always been cold, smile. However, both she and Song Qiri could see that this little girl was extraordinary. Moreover, with their strength they couldn't see through her. Of course, they were also confused. However, they were too embarrassed to ask Lin Ling about it. The night passed quickly. During these 2 days, Lin Ling stayed in the courtyard to consolidate his cultivation. After the battle at the Shinair Hall, Lin Ling knew that there would always be someone stronger than him. If he hadn't learned some other skills in the Rainbow Realm, he would have been defeated by Tianao. At this moment, Lin Ling could not wait to reach the martial progenitor realm. That way he would be able to open his 6th Dantian. Unfortunately, his cultivation couldn't be fast. Even if he forcefully reached the martial progenitor realm, it would not be good for his future. Therefore Lin Ling held back. His vision was not limited to the martial progenitor realm. He wanted to become a martial god or even a deity. This was because martial god Wen Tian and Luli Empress were both ranked among the top 10 martial gods in the 9 continents. Without the strength of a martial god, he would not be able to wash away his hatred. Fortunately, Lin Ling's talent was terrifying. Moreover, he had only been in the final world for less than 5 years. His speed of growth was beyond imagination. Therefore, the day of him becoming a martial god was not far away. Unknowingly, 3 days passed. On this day, Lin Ling informed Xiaoyu and the others before heading to the Snow Wind Academy. This time, the cultivation in the Dragon Space Valley would take a period of time. Therefore, he told Xiaoyu and the others to stay at home obediently. At the same time, he lamented that Yuyu and the others were not around. If they were here, Xiaoyu would have someone to take care of her. Moreover, he also thought of Lin Yi. He wondered how his son was doing in Qingzhou. When he arrived at the Snow Wind Academy again, the passing students immediately looked at Lin Ling strangely. That's the number 1 in the Shinair Hall, Lin Ling. His strength is really abnormal. He just passed the freshman trial and became the number 1 in the Shinair Hall. His cultivation speed is too fast. This kind of person will definitely rise in the final world. After Lin Ling left, the students began to discuss spiritedly. Obviously, the battle 3 days ago had left a heavy shadow in their hearts. Nonsense, the Dragon Space Valley has already opened and the son of the devil, Lin Ling, is still not here. At this moment in Lin Ling's class, an old man was angrily looking at the crowd. He was the vice president. Today he had personally come to pick up Lin Ling. However, who would have thought that Lin Ling would not appear until now? This caused everyone to wait for him. Was he still a student? He was a master. Teacher Cailuan and the others also knew that Lin Ling was late and immediately apologized. Teacher Cailuan, as the messenger of God, you are responsible for leading the students to the great path of God. However, you did not inform him of such an important matter in advance. The vice president pointed at Teacher Cailuan and reprimanded her. Teacher Cailuan could only nod her head continuously. Don't think that just because you have some strength you can do whatever you want. We are the holy cathedral of God. You can't come and go as you please. Teacher Cailuan, you are too gentle and too nice to him. That's why he is so lawless. The vice president said angrily again. It's my fault. Teacher Cailuan lowered her head even more. Lin Ling is here. At this moment, Chu Yun suddenly shouted. The whole class immediately fell silent. Many people winked at each other, secretly reminding Lin Ling that the vice president was angry. However, when Lin Ling appeared at the door, the vice president was stunned. His originally angry face immediately turned into a smile. It was a very warm and gentle smile. Lin Ling, you are here. Chapter 3485. Dragon Space Valley Cultivation. Vice President, I hope I'm not late. Lin Ling was also taken aback as he said plainly. No, no, you're the first to arrive. The other God 1 Hall and God 3 Hall's first rankers are simply lawless. They haven't appeared until now, which is a disgrace to the academy. If they all followed the rules like you, then I wouldn't have to worry so much. The vice president said with a smile. He knew that Lin Ling's background wasn't simple. Even the city lord had to give him face. In addition to his heaven-defying talent, how would he dare to offend him? Ah. The whole class was stunned again. Wasn't Lin Ling the last to arrive? How did he become the first? Moreover, Lin Ling followed the rules? Damn, this guy hasn't been seen for more than 10 days, and he's the most powerful person in the entire academy. Subsequently, many people were filled with envy. Even Miss Xiluan was the same. This was because they knew that Lin Ling was actually late, but the vice president didn't dare to reprimand him. It's good that you're here. Let's go to Dragon Space Valley. The vice president smiled again as he led Lin Ling out of the class and towards Dragon Space Valley. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the back mountain of the academy. There were already 2 people waiting there. They were the first rankers of God 1 Hall and God 3 Hall. When the two of them saw Lin Ling, the God 1 Hall expert's eyes were filled with reverence. On the other hand, the God 3 Hall expert was dissatisfied because he was stronger than Lin Ling, yet he had to wait for Lin Ling. However, with the vice president around, he didn't dare to have any objections. Dragon Space Valley is in the universal void. You can reach the valley from here. However, there are too many strange forces gathered in Dragon Space Valley, so you have to be careful. The vice president said to the 3 of them. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. It seemed like training in Dragon Space Valley wasn't as simple as he thought. Moreover, 36 academies will be entering the Dragon Space Valley this time, so it's very likely that you'll encounter those experts. Next, he led Lin Ling and the others forward. Not long after, the group arrived outside a mountain valley. The mountain valley was filled with multicolored lights. It was beautiful, magnificent, and extremely magical. Go in. Following the vice dean's words, Lin Ling's group of 3 immediately entered the valley. After entering, a mysterious feeling spread out. Looking carefully, there were actually a large number of mirrors in the Dragon Space Valley. Moreover, they were incomparably huge mirrors. Lin Ling and the other 2 looked at themselves in the mirror and couldn't help but be somewhat astonished. This mirror isn't as simple as it seems. At this moment, the expert from Shinsan Hall shouted and punched a mirror in the east. Rumble. The huge mirror instantly shattered, and a dense spiritual energy spread out. Moreover, there was a mysterious wood element energy within it, as if it was the energy of the gods. Haha, this mirror is very suitable for me to train in. The expert from Shinsan Hall was overjoyed and immediately shot into the mirror. Just as he disappeared, the mirror that had been shattered earlier reappeared. In the mirror, Lin Ling could see that the expert from Shinsan Hall was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. Dragon space, everything is empty. It seems like these mirrors are extraordinary. Lin Ling couldn't help but be shocked. The expert from Shin Yi Hall beside him greeted Lin Ling, then broke a mirror and entered to cultivate. Lin Ling shook his head. Currently, he hadn't found a mirror that was suitable for him to train in. Therefore, he could only continue moving forward. As he continued to go deeper, there were more and more mirrors around him. They were of different sizes and gave one a dazzling feeling. This mirror seems to be of the fire element. Suddenly, Lin Ling stopped in his tracks. He punched out and broke a mirror not far away, then entered it. The mirror was filled with dense fire element spiritual energy. It was extremely ancient, as if it had been there for hundreds of thousands of years. Lin Ling quickly sat down cross-legged and frantically devoured the spiritual energy. His Dantian in the spacetime divine steel immediately transformed and moved towards the 7th heaven sage realm. As the spiritual energy in the mirror disappeared completely, Lin Ling's fire element Dantian naturally reached the 7th heaven sage realm. My realm has finally increased. However, the other 4 major Dantians haven't changed. It seems like I have to find the corresponding mirror. Lin Ling muttered to himself and looked around. Suddenly he frowned. This was because he was currently in a huge mirror. However, looking at the world in the mirror, there were actually many other mirrors. Most importantly, Lin Ling sensed a familiar energy in those mirrors. It seemed that the mirror contained the energy that Lin Ling needed to break through. It seems like cultivating in the Dragon Space Valley depends a lot on luck. If I can find a mirror that suits me, my strength will naturally increase by leaps and bounds. Lin Ling was elated and wanted to punch the mirror in front of him. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Mirror in a mirror? Ah, we found the mirror in a mirror. The voice was extremely excited. Then, the mirror that Lin Ling was in was broken and 3 figures rushed in. Upon closer inspection, the 3 of them were dressed differently and seemed to be experts from different schools. However, their strength was roughly at the level of the Shanair Hall. Lin Ling was naturally not afraid of such strength. He placed his hands behind his back and looked at the 3 of them calmly. It's indeed the mirror in a mirror. Ah, our luck is not bad. It's said that if you find the mirror in a mirror, you will be able to obtain the most ancient energy. This mirror in a mirror is simply our blessed land. The 3 of them became even more excited and couldn't stop smiling. This made Lin Ling feel that it was time to interrupt their complacency. I found this mirror in a mirror first. Shouldn't you be talking about first come, first served? Lin Ling's voice rang out. The 3 of them were still laughing, but their laughter gradually subsided and they looked coldly at Lin Ling. One of them narrowed his eyes and said, I don't know which school you're from and I'm not interested to know. I'll give you a chance now. Get out of my sight immediately. Seeing that I'm in a good mood, I won't touch you. Hearing that, Lin Ling shook his head and didn't intend to talk nonsense. The illusionary god world was activated. The entire mirror immediately turned into a world full of vitality, which made the 3 of them change their expressions. What kind of method was this? They couldn't see through it at all. Moreover, countless voices rang out in this world, seeing that I'm in a good mood, I won't touch you. Get out of my sight now. When these words were spoken, the 3 of them flew into a rage out of humiliation and exploded with all their strength. Unfortunately, in the end, not every Shanair Hall's champion was strong. For example, the 3 people in front of them couldn't compare to Tian'ao, let alone Lin Ling's opponent. Spacetime Divine Steel. Chapter 3486. Tomb of Ferocious Beasts for Ferocious Beasts. Enough, kid, don't force me. Let me tell you, Dragon Space Valley is so big the Academy won't even know if 1 or 2 people die. Don't force me to kill you. Kid, I'm from the Duan clan. You should know what the Duan clan represents. Kid. The 3 of them kept retreating and roared at the same time. Lin Ling also stopped attacking and looked at them indifferently. Duan clan. Kid. The 3 of them thought that Lin Ling was apprehensive of the Duan clan's identity and sneered. That's right, the Duan clan of the final world is also the oldest existence in the final world. Are you afraid? Get over here now, kowtow, and admit your mistake. Perhaps I'll spare your life. Kid. When they said this, the other 2 revealed a murderous look in their eyes as if they were hiding some murderous intent. I'm really afraid of the Duan clan. Kid. However, just as they finished speaking, a 5-meter-long dragon bow appeared in Lin Ling's hand. The dragon god roared and shook the mirror world. How dare you? Kid. The 3 of them didn't expect Lin Ling to dare to fight back. You're right, Dragon Space Valley is so big the Academy won't even know if 1 or 2 people die. Kid. Lin Ling muttered to himself and shot out the dragon god's arrow. Then he turned around and walked to the mirror. He broke the mirror with a punch and entered it. Outside the mirror, countless dragon god's arrows swept towards the 3 of them. The 3 of them couldn't escape and were directly pierced through by the arrows. When Lin Ling entered the new mirror, he immediately realized that this mirror had the great Tao of Void, and could actually turn into any spiritual energy. This made Lin Ling happy. In this way he could even save royal crystals and increase his strength here. At that moment, Lin Ling sat cross-legged and the spiritual energy of the great Tao of Void around him flowed into Lin Ling's body. Void, this also represented nothing. This kind of spiritual energy was extremely rare because most of the spiritual energy in heaven and earth had its own attribute. Moreover, this spiritual energy had been sealed in the mirror for hundreds of thousands of years. It was pure and rich. It could greatly reduce the martial artist's chi deviation. Moreover, after it entered the martial artist, he didn't need to refine it and could immediately use it. At this moment, Lin Ling was like a sponge, crazily absorbing the surrounding spirit chi. His second dantian quietly rumbled as he stepped into the 7th stage of the Saint Realm. Next, the 3rd dantian and the 4th dantian. Lin Ling immediately felt exhausted and could not help but roar at the sky. Only when all 5 of his dantians had broken through did he look at the spiritual energy around him. Then he took out many jade bottles and drew a boundary with both hands, sealing the spiritual energy in the jade bottles. This spiritual chi of the void could be used for the next breakthrough, or it could be given to Yu and the others. Of course, Lin Ling wanted to give it to Yu and the others. Zen. There are more mirrors in the mirror. After standing up, Lin Ling looked around. Suddenly, a strange feeling arose in his heart. It was as if there was a voice telling Lin Ling to go to one of the mirrors. This surprised Lin Ling. After careful observation, he realized that the voice came from the realm-swallowing beast. Realm-swallowing beast? Lin Ling frowned. Following the realm-swallowing beast's instructions, he rushed to one of the mirrors. Bang! After breaking the mirror, Lin Ling entered it. However, the realm-swallowing beast's voice sounded again. It was pointing to another mirror. Bang! Lin Ling broke the mirror again and entered it. Then he broke more than 10 mirrors. However, the Dragon Space Valley was like a maze. The mirrors were endless. It was as if one was lost in it. Just as Lin Ling was getting impatient, the world in front of him finally changed. It was no longer a world of mirrors. Instead, it was a dark land. On this land, the sky was gloomy. Dark clouds covered the land. However, the land was dead silent. Most importantly, there was a terrifying murderous aura. It was like a storm was sweeping in all directions. Murderous aura. This was the strongest murderous aura that Lin Ling had ever seen in his life. Looking into the distance on the dark land, a huge black stone statue sat there. This statue was extremely tall. It stood there quietly and emitted an unparalleled murderous aura. Upon closer inspection, the statue looked like a lion. However, it had a pair of huge horns and wings. Lin Ling searched his memory but did not seem to have any recollection of such a demonic beast. At this moment, the black stone statue moved. It looked at Lin Ling with murderous eyes. A living creature? Lin Ling's expression changed. In the blink of an eye, the monster appeared in front of him. A claw swept over. It could easily cut through 10,000 worlds. Most importantly, the terrifying murderous aura swept over like a wave. Lin Ling had no choice but to transform into the world-swallowing beast. After transforming, the impact of the murderous aura was significantly reduced. Chaos. Seeing Lin Ling transform into the world-swallowing beast, the monster spoke in human language. Your Excellency, what is the meaning of this? Lin Ling transformed into the world-swallowing beast. His entire body was black as he spoke coldly. I am the Tao Tai. The black monster said in a low voice. This is the tomb of the ferocious beasts. Tao Tai? Lin Ling was shocked. The Tao Tai was one of the 4 most ferocious beasts in the universe. It was on the same level as the world-swallowing beast. A long time ago, Lin Ling had also fought one of the 4 most ferocious beasts in the universe. It was Jianghu. Either you die or I die. The Tao Tai once again pounced on Lin Ling. His strength was extremely strong. It exceeded the power of 5,000 realms. Lin Ling suddenly retreated. He immediately activated his talent fusion transformation. He did not transform into a giant monster. Instead, he transformed into an ordinary human. That was because he wanted to borrow the power of the tyrannical song sword. He used all his techniques. For a moment he blocked the Tao Ye's attacks. However, this could not go on. Lin Ling would lose sooner or later. There were 4 most ferocious beasts in the universe. One mountain could not hide 2 tigers. It was no wonder that the Tao Tai wanted to kill him. The Tao Tai muttered to itself as it fought. How strange. He is clearly a human, but he can obtain the body of chaos. Furthermore, it is extremely pure. You should know that chaos is immortal. How could an ordinary person kill it? Where did this guy get the world-swallowing beast? It could see that the chaos in front of it had not returned to its ultimate form. If it could devour the world-swallowing beast, it would be greatly beneficial to it. But Lin Ling's situation was getting worse and worse. His various powerful means simply could not hold on for so long. This caused his body to be continuously devoured as time passed. This made the Tao Tai extremely excited. It knew that devouring chaos was only a matter of time. Chapter 3487. Increase in Strength. Suddenly, Lin Ling looked at the vast land and realized that there were many corpses of ferocious beasts. This was indeed the tomb of the ferocious beasts. Chaos devours everything. All this time I've been relying on the powerful physical strength of chaos to fight my enemies, but I've never discovered the true characteristics of chaos. Lin Ling had no way out. Since he could not escape death, he might as well fight to the death. Then Lin Ling gave up resisting and allowed Tao Tai to devour him. Destroy and rebuild. Lin Ling took a gamble. He was betting that the realm-swallowing beast was immortal, especially in a world filled with ferocious beasts. He could use the ferocious beast to revive. The giant Tao Tai tore at Lin Ling and swallowed pieces of Lin Ling's flesh. Lin Ling's body was also covered in blood. Tao Tai became even more excited. It opened its mouth and tore off another piece of Lin Ling's flesh. Gradually, Lin Ling began to disappear. He had been devoured alive by Tao Tai. After devouring Lin Ling, Tao Tai roared at the sky. Its body became even bigger and its strength reached the power of 7,000 worlds. It was terrifying. However, just as it was about to leave, something strange happened. The surrounding ferocious beasts rolled like a tide and turned into a large patch of dark clouds. Chaos. Looking at the dark clouds formed by the ferocious beasts, Tao Tai's expression changed. In the legends, chaos represented an immortal body. Now, it finally experienced it for itself. Moreover, the one who triggered the characteristics of chaos was a human. In the sky, the dark clouds began to wriggle, and a young man with a pitch-black body appeared. He was Lin Ling. However, he was covered in blood and seemed to have suffered serious injuries. The surrounding ferocious beasts were also frantically healing his body. The tomb of the ferocious beasts is indeed the place where chaos is revived. Destruction sometimes represents rebirth. Lin Ling stood quietly in the sky, his long hair fluttering in the wind as he muttered to himself. Earlier he was actually gambling as well. Fortunately, he made the right bet. The realm-swallowing beast had an immortal and indestructible body. In a world with a murderous aura, it could indeed be revived. Unfortunately, there were very few such murderous auras in the world. If Lin Ling wanted to revive in the outside world, the only thing he could do was to create his own ominous aura. What a strong murderous aura. My realm-swallowing beast talent has reached the second-grade ultimate desolate body. After that, Lin Ling continuously sensed the changes in his body, and the corner of his mouth revealed an excited smile. He looked at Tao Tai and said indifferently, "Are you still coming?" Although he was still no match for the Tao Tai in this world, he was immortal and indestructible. It was impossible for the Tao Tai to destroy him. Forget it, forget it. It's been a long time since I've seen an orthodox chaos. We're all four great ferocious beings. If we were to kill each other, it would only benefit others. You should leave. The Tao Tai looked at Lin Ling indifferently, shook its head and said, if Lin Ling was only a realm-swallowing beast, it would definitely not let Lin Ling go. However, Lin Ling had used the murderous aura to enhance his talent and had become a chaos. He was also a rare being in the universe like the Tao Tai. Therefore, it did not want to exterminate him. Hearing the Tao Ye's words, Lin Ling was a little surprised, but he still nodded. At this moment, a mysterious force enveloped his body and brought Lin Ling away from this murderous aura world. Sensing this, Lin Ling quickly returned to his human form. By the time he reacted, he had already appeared in the back mountain of the Snow Wind Academy. The vice president and the others were looking at Lin Ling in shock. This was because Lin Ling was covered in blood and seemed to have suffered serious injuries. Lin Ling, are you all right? Yes. The vice president hurriedly asked. Lin Ling smiled and shook his head. I'm fine. It's just some minor injuries. It's all right. Compared to the injuries on his body, Lin Ling was more concerned about the enhancement of the realm-swallowing beast's talent. As long as the murderous aura was not reduced, Lin Ling would not die. In the 9 prefectures, only a late-stage martial ancestor could annihilate Lin Ling's murderous aura. I'll recuperate here for a moment. Lin Ling looked at the vice president and said. The vice president immediately nodded and took out a precious elixir and handed it to Lin Ling. He sensed that Lin Ling's strength had greatly increased, but the torture he had suffered in the Dragon Space Valley seemed to be not small. While Lin Ling was recuperating, several figures stood quietly at the gate of the Snow Wind City. They looked into the distance as if they were waiting for someone. Damn, Lin Ling actually became the number 1 in the Shanair Hall. After waiting for a moment, a man suddenly said coldly. He was Yi Yiming. Beside him was a man in his 40s. His face was ugly as he said coldly, I don't know where this Lin Ling learned some unorthodox skills. Even Tianao is not his match. This is beyond my expectations. Teacher Zhou Lin, you are the messenger of God. Are you going to let Lin Ling shit on our heads? Yes, although Lin Ling has some skills, there are many people in the world who are stronger than him. What right does he have to humiliate Teacher Zhou Lin? The others spoke one after another, with Yi Yiming leading the group. Obviously, Lin Ling had knocked him unconscious twice. This had made him too ashamed to face anyone in the Snow Wind Academy. He had always wanted to take revenge for this humiliation. Teacher Zhou Lin was originally a little afraid of Lin Ling. However, the unreconciled words of the students caused the fear in his heart to disappear quietly. Towards Lin Ling, the resentment in his heart had obviously surpassed the fear of Lin Ling. Moreover, he guessed that the reason why the Snow Wind Academy valued Lin Ling was because Lin Ling was the number one in the Shin'er Hall. However, in the final world, strength sometimes did not rule everything. Unless you had the strength to sweep away all the strong people in the final world, so relationships were also the most important in the final world. Lin Ling was a country bumpkin from the 9 states. What kind of relationship could he have in the final world? After receiving Lord Fu, I will slowly think of a way to deal with Lin Ling. It would be best to cripple him. Without strength, the Snow Wind Academy would not put him in their eyes. Teacher Zhou Lin said fiercely. His words made Yi Yiming and the others happy. Teacher Zhou Lin was the messenger of God. He knew many strong people. He definitely had a way to cripple Lin Ling. They're here. At this time, Zhou Lin's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw a huge white crane flying over from the distant horizon. There were several people standing on the white crane. They were in high spirits and their strength was extraordinary. City Lord Fu. Yi Yiming and the others were also happy. Speaking of which, City Lord Fu was also the city lord of a main city. He had a good relationship with Teacher Zhou Lin. Today they wanted to take a walk around Snow Wind City, so they let Zhou Lin be their tour guide. Teacher Zhou Lin, after our parting, I have a whole new level of respect for you today. Not long after, the huge white crane landed on the ground. A man in the lead waved his hand and the white crane immediately turned into a stream of light and disappeared into his robe. You flatter me, but Lord Fu has been rising steadily. I'm afraid he has already had the opportunity to meet a god. Chapter 3488. Bandits. Haha. Lord Fu laughed. However, he did not pretend to be an expert in front of Zhou Lin. After all, Zhou Lin was a teacher of the academy and a messenger of God. He had great potential in the future. I'll be the host and show Lord Fu around Snow City. Next, Zhou Lin brought Lord Fu and the others into Snow City to entertain Lord Fu. Lord Fu was the governor of a main city. He had come to Snow City to visit Sangchiri. However, he did not have a good relationship with Sangchiri, so he did not bother to visit him. As time passed, Master Zhou Lin also took Lord Fu around the entire snow-blowing city. This made Lord Fu's mood very good. Judging from the management of snow-blowing city, Lord Fu's main city still has a lot to learn. Wait. They just passed through a street when Lord Fu suddenly stopped in his tracks, and his brows were tightly knit together. He glanced at the courtyards on both sides of the street. Suddenly, his eyes fell on one of the courtyards. After examining it carefully, his expression changed drastically. Spiritual marrow. He did not expect Snow City to have spiritual marrow. Lord Fu's eyes flickered. Ordinary people did not know what spiritual marrow was, but he had read about it in ancient books. He knew that spiritual marrow could speed up the growth of one's talent. Then he pushed the door open and entered the courtyard. He immediately saw the ancient boundary array in the courtyard. This made him realize that the owner of the courtyard also knew about spiritual marrow and was using it to his advantage. Lord Fu, what are you doing? Zhou Lin, who was next to him, was confused. Master Zhou Lin, there is something I need in this courtyard. I want to buy it. I wonder if you can do it for me? Of course, if you can buy it, I will pay you handsomely. Lord Fu looked at Zhou Lin and said. This courtyard had an ancient spirit formation, and the might of the spirit marrow had been excavated. It had saved him a lot of effort. How could he not buy such a precious land? Zhou Lin was stunned. Then he smiled faintly and said, Lord Fu, you have found the right person. In Snow City there is nothing that I, Zhou Lin, cannot do. That's great. Lord Fu was overjoyed. At this moment, several figures walked out of the hall of the courtyard. There was an old man, a young man, and a little girl. They frowned at the group of uninvited guests. Who are you? Why did you barge into our courtyard? That afterimage immediately said indifferently. It's you? Zhou Lin, Yi Yiming, and the others clearly recognized the afterimage. They never thought that this courtyard was actually Lin Ling's. All of you get out of the courtyard. That Yi Yiming immediately hooted loudly. Originally, he hadn't been able to find a way to deal with Lin Ling, but now he did. With Lord Fu's appearance, how could a mere Lin Ling resist? We were the ones who bought this courtyard. Why do we have to scram? Ken Jin frowned and said immediately. Hehe, you bought it? Who knows if you stole it or not? I'll give you 3 breaths of time to scram. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. Zhou Lin also laughed sinisterly. Hearing this, Xiao Yu and the others became anxious. This courtyard had been modified by Big Brother Lin Ling and set up a large number of enchantments. These guys wanted to snatch it away with just a few words? Scram. Seeing that they were stubbornly refusing to leave, Lord Fu took a step forward. A tyrannical aura immediately spread out and swept towards Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu's tender little face was immediately slapped and her small body rushed out of the courtyard. Xiao Yu. Dou Xian and the others hurriedly rushed out of the courtyard. When they saw the clear palm print on Xiao Yu's little face, they immediately felt heartache. However, although Xiao Yu's little face was stinging, she was still very strong. She bit her lips tightly and did not say a word. Let's go and find Lord Fu. Dou Xian immediately carried Xiao Yu on his back and walked towards Snow Wind Academy. Originally, with Lin Ling's status in Snow Wind City, it was impossible for Lord Fu to snatch the courtyard. However, Lin Ling did not want to attract too much attention, so he withdrew the people around the courtyard. This caused Lord Fu and the others to be so arrogant. Not bad at all. Haha, you've actually set up so many spirit formations. It really saved me a lot of effort. Moreover, the materials needed to set up the spirit formations must be priceless. At this moment, Lord Fu was walking around the courtyard. He was constantly looking around and the smile on his face became even more brilliant. To him, this was simply a pleasant surprise. Who is the owner of this courtyard? Lord Fu asked again. He's only a junior, the number 1 of the God's second hall of the Snow Wind Academy. Although he has some ability, he can't compare to Lord Fu. Zhou Lin immediately flattered. Haha. Lord Fu was completely relieved. He was the city lord and the owner of the courtyard was only the number 1 of the God's second hall. There was simply no comparison. Presumably, as long as he went to the Snow Wind Academy to ask for the person, the Snow Wind Academy's headmaster would not stop him. Afterwards, they set up the courtyard again. During the process of setting up the courtyard, laughter was unceasing. They were completely unaware that a great disaster was about to befall them. At this moment, in the Snow Wind Academy, after Lin Ling recovered from his injuries, he immediately left the Snow Wind Academy and walked in the direction of the courtyard. However, just as he walked out of the Snow Wind Academy, Lin Ling immediately saw several familiar figures running over. This caused Lin Ling to be overjoyed because it was Xiao Yu and the others. However, just as he was about to greet them, he immediately discovered that something was wrong with Xiao Yu and the others. There was a clear palm print on Xiao Yu's face. Xiao Yu's eyes were filled with tears but she endured it and did not cry. Lin Ling's expression immediately became ugly. Xiao Yu was so innocent and naive. Someone actually dared to do such a thing to her? Young master, please convict us. After Dou Kening rushed over to Lin Ling, he immediately knelt down on one knee and reported what had happened earlier. Hearing that, Lin Ling was enraged. It was as if a volcano had erupted in his heart. He did not blame Dou Kening for this matter because that group of people were clearly not people that Dou Kening and the others could stop. He did not expect that teacher Zhou Lin was also involved in this matter. They had robbed his courtyard and reaped the benefits of being a fisherman. Now they even dared to hit Xiao Yu. Moreover, this was only Snow Wind City. If it was any other place, those bandits would most likely kill people. Go, let's go back. Lin Ling coldly shouted. He looked at Dou Kening and said, Old Dou, you go and inform the city lord. I want to see if those guys can fly around here. Okay. Dou Kening nodded excitedly and quickly left. Lin Ling held Xiao Yu's hand and walked towards the direction of the courtyard step by step. With his footsteps, murderous and ominous aura filled the air like thunder. Wherever he walked, many martial artists felt a chill in their hearts, as if they had seen some ominous creature. Outside the courtyard, several figures were guarding the gate and excitedly chatting. Teacher Zhou Lin helped Lord Fu this time. Lord Fu must be extremely grateful to teacher Zhou Lin. Perhaps teacher Zhou Lin can compete for the position of vice principal next time. Then we are not below one person and above thousands? Chapter 3489. You slapped my face? Yi Yiming and the rest were stunned. Was Lin Ling? Lin Ling had returned. Yi Yiming and the rest could not help but laugh. They thought that even if Lin Ling knew about the courtyard, he would definitely not dare to come. Haha, Lin Ling, your courtyard has been robbed. What? Are you unhappy? Yi Yiming took the lead and shouted. He had lost to Lin Ling twice and had been knocked unconscious. This was a great humiliation. Therefore, when he saw that Lin Ling was being bullied, he immediately felt elated. Yi Yiming. Lin Ling with Xiao Yu and the broken sword did not stop walking. They had already arrived at the entrance of the courtyard. Let me give you a piece of advice. The city lord of Flying Frost City has taken a liking to this courtyard. If you know what's good for you, get lost immediately. After Yi Yiming laughed, he immediately looked at Lin Ling fiercely and said, Lord Fu is the city lord of a main city. Who do you think you are, Lin Ling? You actually want to compete with him? Get lost. The others also spoke one after another. I'm sorry. You guys are so arrogant. So you have a city lord as your backer. Lin Ling immediately understood and nodded. So what if I do? If you're unhappy, bite me. Let me tell you, we are in charge of guarding the courtyard for Lord Fu. If we lose a single hair, you, Lin Ling, will have offended the city lord of a main city. Yi Yiming said proudly. However, just as he finished speaking, the tyrannical song sword appeared in Lin Ling's hand and slashed at the others. These people were not even as strong as Yi Yiming. They could not block Lin Ling's slash at all and were easily cut in half by Lin Ling. Yi Yiming's eyes immediately trembled. He knew that he was not Lin Ling's opponent, so he brought up the city lord. However, who knew that Lin Ling did not seem to know who the city lord was. He killed him as he pleased, lawless. So what if he's the city lord? Lin Ling looked at Yi Yiming. Yi Yiming's whole body trembled and he suddenly shouted, Lin Ling in snow-blowing city, killing people is punishable by the city lord's punishment. Don't you dare touch me. At this moment he was completely flustered. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ling lifted his leg and kicked out. That kick had a mysterious power exploding. It made Lin Ling's right leg turn black. This was the body of the world-swallowing beast. Currently, the realm-swallowing beast had achieved the second-class ultimate Baron body. Its physical strength had increased by 1,000 realms. Its speed had also increased by 100 realms. Yi Yiming was no match for Lin Ling in the past, let alone now. Yi Yiming immediately shot into the courtyard like a cannonball and smashed into the ground. Inside the courtyard, Lord Fu, Zhou Lin, and the others were still inspecting the courtyard. At this moment they were undoubtedly shocked. Who is it? Sir, it seems to be teacher Zhou Lin's student, Yi Yiming. The experts beside Lord Fu all frowned and said. Lord Fu and Zhou Lin's expressions immediately turned ugly. Someone had dared to touch their people right under their noses. Rumble. However, before they could finish their thoughts, a huge ancient tablet came crashing down from the sky. It accurately hit Yi Yiming's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood more than 10 meters away. He could no longer move. Who is so bold? The attendant beside Lord Fu was so angry that his voice became hoarse. It was one thing to throw Yi Yiming in, but to use a stone tablet to smash him? How arrogant. At the same time, several figures walked into the courtyard. It was Lin Ling and the others. When teacher Zhou Lin saw them, he was furious. It was Lin Ling. Furthermore, he saw that Lin Ling was holding several figures in his hands and throwing them to the ground. Upon closer inspection, those figures were his students. Moreover, they seemed to have been killed by Lin Ling. This made teacher Zhou Lin's anger reach its peak. Several of his students had been killed, and Yi Yiming was suppressed by the space-time divine steel. Lin Ling was too arrogant and lawless. Just as he was about to attack Lin Ling, a cold voice suddenly came from the side. Teacher Zhou Lin, this person is so arrogant. Who is he? The person who spoke was Lord Fu. At that moment he brought a chair over and sat down calmly. Obviously he was not in a hurry. He just wanted to know if the young man would regret his actions if he did not care about the consequences. This was because killing teacher Zhou Lin's students was a serious crime. As long as the city lord of Blizzard City convicted the young man, even if he did not die, he would lose a layer of skin. Arrogant? When Lin Ling heard Lord Fu's words, he immediately laughed. Who was the arrogant one to rob someone else's courtyard in broad daylight? You don't have to ask. My name is Lin Ling and I'm the owner of this courtyard. Lin Ling did not hide anything and said calmly. Lin Ling, how dare you not kneel down and greet Lord Fu when you see him? You're too lawless. When Zhou Lin saw Lin Ling's nonchalant expression, he pointed at Lin Ling and screamed. Teacher Zhou Lin, I thought you were a messenger of God and a teacher of the academy. No matter how trashy you are, you should at least be human. However, you've disappointed me. Kneel down and greet me? Are you born to be a servant? Or do you teach the students in the academy to kneel down and greet them? Sigh, it's better for a teacher like you to die early so that you don't implicate others. Hearing this, Lin Ling said calmly. Zhou Lin was so angry that his hair stood on end and his eyes turned red. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. In Zhou Lin's opinion, Lin Ling had offended Lord Fu and was doomed to die. Even the vice dean would not be able to save Lin Ling. Teacher Zhou Lin, calm down. However, at this moment, Lord Fu drank his tea and waved his hand calmly. Zhou Lin immediately stopped attacking. After blowing on his tea, Lord Fu glanced at Lin Ling and said, "Boy, I have to say that you're really brave. However, you don't know my identity. Otherwise you wouldn't dare to be so arrogant." "That's right, ignorant boy. How dare you be so arrogant? I'll give you a slap in the face. Do you dare to come?" Hearing Lord Fu's words, the others immediately clamored. Lord Fu smiled and drank his tea again. He could understand Lin Ling's anger, but he also knew that Lin Ling did not know his identity. Otherwise, Lin Ling would have knelt down and admitted his mistake. Lin Ling was expressionless when he heard their words. He let go of Xiao Yu's hand and walked toward one of the elders. Slap. Then, the crisp sound of a slap was heard. The elder had been slapped hard by Lin Ling. At this moment, his eyes narrowed as if he could not believe his eyes. He was a late-stage martial ancestor, and his backer was the city governor of the main city. However, an ordinary-looking boy had slapped him in the face. Did this boy know what he was doing? Did he know how much trouble this would bring? For a moment, the elder touched his face and stood there in a daze. Lin Ling ignored him and walked to the next person. Then another slap was heard. This time it was a middle-aged man who was slapped. His strength was not weak either. Chapter 3490. Fight to the death. "Weren't you the ones who asked me to hit you?" Lin Ling didn't even look at him as he walked towards the next person. Following that, another hearty slap sounded. Those who were hit didn't do anything either. They just sat there in a daze. Perhaps to them, killing Lin Ling was as easy as flipping their hands. However, before killing an ant like Lin Ling, they wanted Lin Ling to deeply understand how lowly he was and what kind of powerhouse he had provoked. Smack. The next person to be hit was teacher Zhou Lin. He had clearly been slapped silly. He never expected Lin Ling to be so bold. Finally, Lin Ling came before Lord Fu. At this moment, Lord Fu was still sipping his tea. His eyes were half closed as he muttered to himself, "Number 1 of the Shen Air Hall. No wonder you have such courage." However, in the final world, individual strength isn't the only thing. Unless you have the strength to dominate everything, relationships are also very important. Therefore, no matter how talented you are, as long as you dare to make a move, I can guarantee that even your deputy dean won't be able to protect you. Perhaps you might doubt my ability, but let me remind you. Don't let the truth come to pass because of your doubts. When that happens, you will definitely regret it. After taking a sip of tea, Lord Fu raised his head and spoke in a threatening tone. Lin Ling frowned as he looked indifferently at his left and right hands. Upon seeing this, teacher Zhou Lin and the others immediately laughed. Lin Ling finally knew what kind of existence Lord Fu was. He must be regretting it now. When Lord Fu saw Lin Ling's expression, he nodded. He knew that Lin Ling had been affected by him. At the end of the day, he was still the city lord of a main city. He held a high position all year round, so he definitely had the aura of a superior. He immediately wanted to speak, but at this moment Lin Ling also spoke. "Previously I was thinking about which hand I should hit you with. However, after thinking about it, I decided to forget about it because it doesn't make much of a difference. Also, I plan to hit you with both hands." After saying this, Lin Ling raised his hand, looked at Lord Fu who was still drinking tea and viciously slapped him twice. 2 slaps. That was one more slap than anyone else before. Furthermore, Lin Ling should have more or less sensed that Lord Fu was no ordinary person. And yet, he still dared to attack him and did so without hesitation. This guy was a lunatic. "My lord!" Teacher Zhou Lin and the other powerhouses cried out in shock. However, Lord Fu raised his hand to stop them. Then, he stroked his cheek as though he wanted to find the pleasure of slapping him. "It's been a long time since someone dared to slap me. It seems like what I said to you before was nothing more than a gust of wind. I originally wanted to spare your life, but I can't seem to find any reason to do so now. Tell me, how do you want to die?" His voice was still calm as if he was talking to a friend. However, those who knew him knew that Lord Fu was angry. Once, in Lord Fu's main city, when he was angry, he killed hundreds of thousands of people in one night. As the governor of a main city, he had the right to do so. What a joke. You robbed my courtyard and hit my Xiaoyu. I haven't even asked you how you want to die, and you're asking me how I want to die? I can tell you that you won't be able to leave Blizzard City today. Also, you may not believe me, but I, Lin Ling, will say that if any of you leave Blizzard City alive, it'll be my loss. At this time, Lin Ling also spoke indifferently. Haha, are you dreaming? Lord Fu immediately laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. This was because even the governor of Blizzard City did not dare to speak to him like this. However, before he could finish laughing, a rolling storm swept across the sky. When he looked up, he saw countless divine wolves galloping in the sky, heading toward the courtyard. Outside the courtyard, a large number of experts had also appeared. They had actually surrounded the courtyard so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. At the same time, an angry voice resounded through the sky. What he said is not a fool's dream. When these words drifted into the ears of Lord Fu and the others, their expressions changed drastically. They knew that it was Tsang Chiri, the governor of Blizzard City. As for Teacher Zhou Lin, he was so scared that he fell to the ground with a plop. His face was as pale as paper. However, at this moment, Lord Fu waved his hand at them and said, "It's fine. There should be some misunderstanding between us and City Lord Tsang. Let me explain. He shouldn't care about this matter anymore." After all, this was Blizzard City, not his main city, so Lord Fu did not dare to be too arrogant. Of course, he was the governor of a main city, so Governor Tsang would give him face. "City Lord Tsang, I hope you've been well since we last met. Today I passed by your city and wanted to pay you a visit, but I ended up wasting some time on some trivial matters. Speaking of which, the people of your snow-blowing city are quite rude." Lord Fu cupped his fists and said politely. Of course, at the same time, he did not forget to accuse Lin Ling of a serious crime. "Fuck you." However, the god wolf in the sky roared and threw a punch at Lord Fu. Lord Fu was startled. It seemed that Governor Tsang was very angry with him. At this critical moment, he activated his powerful strength and blocked Tsang Chiri's attack. He frowned and asked, "Governor Tsang, what do you mean by this?" "What do I mean? Let me tell you, you won't be able to walk out of Blizzard City today." In the sky, the majestic god wolf stopped. A majestic man was riding on top of it, and he looked majestic without being angry. Why is this? Lord Fu was even more confused. Suddenly, he looked at Lin Ling and thought, is it because of this kid? However, no matter how powerful this kid is, it is not worth it for Governor Tsang to fall out with him. Unless this kid is Governor Tsang's father. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding between us. With that in mind, Lord Fu added, "I've misunderstood your whole family. Kill them." However, Governor Tsang's murderous intent exploded, and he used all kinds of powerful attacks to suppress Lord Fu. Moreover, these attacks were so powerful that they did not affect the courtyard at all. Lord Fu was suddenly under great pressure. He kept blocking the attacks and his face turned black with anger. "Governor Tsang, why?" he asked angrily. He could not understand why Governor Tsang had gone crazy. "There's no need to ask. You'll know when you go to hell." Unfortunately, Governor Tsang did not even bother to explain. He just wanted to kill Lord Fu. This undoubtedly infuriated Lord Fu. He wanted to flare up several times, but he held himself back because this was Snow Wind City and not his territory. "Governor Tsang, I'll apologize for this, okay? Go to hell." "Governor Tsang, how about we each take a step back? If there's any loss, just tell me. I'll do my best to compensate you." Someone with sharp eyes immediately replied, "Now, do you still dare to say that you are innocent? Such big words are hanging there. You snatched someone else's residence and you still have the nerve to say that it has nothing to do with you? Most importantly, of all people, you actually dared to steal from him. Kill, kill." City Lord Tsang immediately waved his hand and said with a look of disdain, "Spare us." The experts begged for mercy, but it was of no use. A moment later, all the people that Lord Fu had brought were dead. The only one left alive was Yi Yiming, who was under the spacetime divine steel. Although he was suppressed by the spacetime divine steel, he could clearly see what had happened in front of him. He was dumbfounded. He had thought that Lin Ling was only the number one in the Shin'er Hall. Daring to provoke Lord Fu was simply courting death. But now, even Lord Fu had been killed. Terrifying. Fuck, who exactly was the one that couldn't be provoked? While he was still in shock, Lin Ling also withdrew the spacetime divine steel. However, he ignored Yi Yiming and looked into the distance. Teacher Zhou Lin actually escaped. In the chaos earlier, Teacher Zhou Lin had actually shamelessly escaped. This was something that even Lin Ling hadn't noticed. "Young lord, he can't escape anywhere. I reckon he's probably back to Snow Wind Academy." City Lord Tsang immediately said. "Alright, let's go to Snow Wind Academy to find him." Lin Ling glanced at Xiao Yu and his gaze landed on the clear image of the slap. His eyes immediately turned cold again. Xiao Yu was the reverse scale in Lin Ling's heart. Not to mention Emir Zhou Lin, even if it was the principal of Snow Wind Academy, as long as he dared to hit Xiaoyu, Lin Ling would dare to risk his life. After all, Lin Ling had already promised Xiaoyu's grandfather that he would protect her. Then let's go to Snow Wind Academy now. City Lord Song also knew that Lin Ling was furious and hurriedly arranged everything. Next, the group of people majestically headed towards Snow Wind Academy. As for Yi Yiming in the courtyard, he was naturally taken away by the guards. Whether he was alive or dead, this was not something that Lin Ling cared about. At this moment, Teacher Zhou Lin's face was filled with panic as he madly ran towards Snow Wind Academy. Previously he was scared out of his wits. Lord Fu, the city lord of a main city, was actually killed. Moreover, it was all for Lin Ling. What kind of background did this Lin Ling have? For him, City Lord Song actually killed his ally? Was he crazy? At this moment, his heart was extremely flustered. Perhaps it was the first time in his life that he was so flustered. I must immediately return to Snow Wind Academy. Otherwise City Lord Song will definitely kill me. And Snow Wind Academy is not under City Lord Song's jurisdiction. He will definitely be helpless. Teacher Zhou Lin secretly said in his heart. Then he felt lucky. Fortunately, he ran quickly before, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Teacher Zhou Lin, why do you look so flustered? Just as he returned to Snow Wind Academy, a teacher immediately looked at Zhou Lin and asked, "Is the vice principal here?" Teacher Zhou Lin ignored him and quickly asked, "Yes, I saw him not long ago. He seems to have gone to Shinsan Hall." The teacher immediately said. Teacher Zhou Lin did not care about him and immediately went to the vice principal. As long as he stayed by the vice principal's side, he would be safe and sound. He did not believe that a mere Lin Ling would be able to get the vice dean to help him. "Teacher Zhou Lin, what is wrong with you?" When Teacher Zhou Lin found the vice principal looked at him with a puzzled face. Zhou Lin immediately found an excuse and casually dealt with it. His purpose was to stay by the vice principal's side. However, just as the two of them exchanged a few words, a teacher immediately informed them that Lin Ling had come to Snow Wind Academy. Moreover, he had specifically asked for Teacher Zhou Lin by name and wanted to kill him. This sentence could be said to be extremely arrogant. What? I have never had any grudges with Lin Ling. He actually wants to kill me? This Lin Ling is too lawless. Zhou Lin was also shocked by Lin Ling's efficiency. He had just arrived and Lin Ling had followed closely behind. However, he would definitely not admit it even if he was beaten to death. Chapter 3492. Literati Star. When they arrived at the entrance of the academy, there was already a sea of people as far as the eye could see. Moreover, there were as many experts as there were clouds. Their neatly arranged armor was like an ancient city wall that completely blocked the entrance of the academy. As for the students of the academy, they were, without a doubt, extremely shocked. They didn't know who had created such a huge scene, daring to surround the academy. When the vice principal walked out, he was also secretly shocked. Soon, his gaze also fell on Lin Ling. "Teacher Zhou Lin, even your students didn't escape. As a teacher, you led the way and even abandoned your own students. I have to say, you are really a good-for-nothing." After a moment of silence, Lin Ling spoke first. "Lin Ling, what nonsense are you talking about? How could Mr. Zhou Lin admit it?" With snot and tears he said, "I know I offended you last time, but after that, I have already apologized. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" He spoke as if he was the victim, and many of the students began to sympathize with him. "Pretend, keep pretending. If I don't take your life today, Lin Ling won't leave." Seeing this, Lin Ling sneered. If not for Master Zhou Lin, Lord Fu might not have set his sights on his courtyard. Therefore, Master Zhou Lin was most likely involved in this matter. "Lin Ling, don't you think you've gone too far? If you want to harm me, you can find the evidence. As long as everything is as you say, I, Zhou Lin, will give you my head. But now you have no proof and are casually slandering me. Do you really think that the Wind Snow Academy is your home?" Teacher Zhou Lin said with a straight face. His words made even more students support him. No matter what, Teacher Zhou Lin was still a teacher of the Snow Wind Academy. Naturally, there would be more people supporting him. As for Lin Ling, it was all based on his own words. How could others believe him? Seeing so many people in the Wind Snow Academy supporting him, Teacher Zhou Lin secretly laughed. He glanced at Lin Ling and thought, "Lin Ling, you are too inexperienced to fight with me. This academy is my territory. Not to mention you, a mere Lin Ling, even if the gods came, they would not be able to do anything to me." Then Teacher Zhou Lin felt that the atmosphere was about right. He hurriedly tried to smooth things over and said, "Lin Ling, perhaps there is some misunderstanding between us. But no matter if it's an illusion or a real, I hope that from now on, we can shake hands and make peace. From now on, although I am innocent, but here I am. Of people. Of Teacher Zhou Lin Ling. Calm." After he finished speaking, he was looking forward to hearing the vice president's polite words. However, the vice president also spoke, "Teacher Zhou Lin, you should go over. Of Zhou Studio." Teacher Zhou Lin suspected that he had misheard. "I say you should go to Lin Ling's side." The vice president had made it very clear this time. At this moment, not only was Teacher Zhou Lin dumbfounded, even the surrounding students were dumbfounded. "This Vice Dean, could it be that you really believe Lin Ling's words?" Teacher Zhou Lin became a little anxious. If he was taken away by Lin Ling, would he still be alive? Therefore, no matter what, he had to grab hold of the vice principal's thick thigh. Hearing this, the vice principal shook his head. This action made Teacher Zhou Lin instantly happy. It seemed that the vice principal did not believe in Lin Ling. However, the vice president's next sentence directly sent Teacher Zhou Lin into the abyss. "It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. What matters is that he wants you as a person," the vice president said solemnly. "Fuck. What's going on? So you're saying that even if Lin Ling deliberately makes things difficult for Teacher Zhou Lin, Lord Vice Dean will still accompany him in his act?" Everyone exclaimed. How could it be like this? Teacher Zhou Lin was dumbfounded. He finally understood what the vice president meant. "No matter what Lin Ling wanted to do, as long as he wants you as a person, I will hand you over." "Don't. Vice President, save me." After thinking it through, Teacher Zhou Lin panicked and shouted. Unfortunately, the vice president ignored him. Instead, he waved his sleeve and a powerful force pushed Teacher Zhou Lin over. Teacher Zhou Lin was caught alive by Tsang Chiri. Tsang Chiri nodded to the vice president and did not say anything because he knew that it was not convenient for him to explain things now. After this, he would pay a visit to the vice president in person, and the latter would definitely understand what he meant. On the contrary, Lin Ling looked at Teacher Zhou Lin indifferently and said, "Teacher Zhou Lin, do you think you can run away? But sometimes I admire your courage. As long as you don't provoke me, you'll be able to do whatever you want. But you know that there's a tiger in the mountain, yet you still insist on going to the tiger's mountain. You even hit my daughter. Haha, do you know that your useless life can't even compare to a single strand of my daughter's hair? Take him away." After saying that, Lin Ling waved his hand and took the lead to leave the Snow Wind Academy. Zhou Lin's face was full of decadence. He knew that he was finished. Of course, if he knew that he was the one who caused Xiaoyu to be beaten, and who Xiaoyu's grandfather was, then he would be sure that even if he had 100 lives, it would not be enough. The matter of the courtyard had finally come to an end. However, in order to prevent the previous incident from happening again, Mayor Tsang had ordered people to block the entire street. The entire street belonged to Lin Ling. On the other hand, Lin Ling once again moved back to the courtyard. However, he had to know that the reason Mayor Tsang was willing to go to such great lengths to help him was because of the trial of God. Therefore, Lin Ling was also looking forward to the arrival of the second task. When Lin Ling had just settled Xiaoyu and the others, the old woman also found Lin Ling. She first looked at Lin Ling with a smile and then told him the location of this task. It was in the literary world. And what Lin Ling had to do was to go to the literary world, find the world's will and bring it back. The literary world is an extremely ordinary world in the eastern border. The world's will is hidden inside. Lin Ling, what you have to do is to find the world's will faster than the others. After explaining the task, the old woman warned Lin Ling, "And if this task is completed, you can also put forward any conditions to me." Lin Ling immediately nodded, but he also asked doubtfully, "But the literary world is so big, how do I find the world's will?" You asked a good question. In fact, the world's will is a kind of power that does not exist in the 9 regions. It has many. What you are looking for is only one of them. However, it has a similar characteristic. As long as you bring the 10th water stone, when you get close to the world's will, the 10th water stone will become pitch black. Chapter 3493. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Lin Ling, I know that you have many enemies and I believe that you can take revenge with your own hands. But as long as you complete the divine trial, the time you need to improve your strength will be greatly reduced. So, you must complete this mission. After seeing Lin Ling put away the stone, the old woman said, "Don't worry, I'll be watching over here. What happened last time will never happen again." Lin Ling naturally knew what the old woman was talking about. He smiled and nodded. "I don't think you can find a second idiot like Zhou Lin in the Snow Wind Academy. Go." The old woman suddenly smiled. Lin Ling immediately bid farewell and left. This trip directly left the final world and headed towards the east border. Speaking of which, with Lin Ling's strength even in the 9 regions, he was an extraordinary existence, not to mention in the myriad worlds. Therefore, when Lin Ling was walking slowly, those people who passed by him were all shocked and scared out of their wits. Some of the more timid ones even knelt down in the void and kowtowed in the direction Lin Ling left. To them, the strength of the person who passed by before was too strong. They were afraid that even a god could not be compared to him. Another 3 days passed and the literary world finally welcomed an expert. His face was a little travel-worn, but when he arrived at the literary world, the corners of his mouth immediately revealed a smile. "I've arrived." This person was Lin Ling. For 3 days he kept hurrying along. At first he used a slow speed, then he used his full strength and finally arrived at the literary world in a short period of time. However, after arriving he found that the literary world was extremely ordinary. Not to mention the Sage Realm, he did not even see a half-step Sage Realm. But after thinking about it, it was normal. After all, this was the east border. Walking along the ancient yellow road, Lin Ling hid his cultivation and wore a large cloak. Then he looked at the milky white stone in his hand. After seeing that the surface of the stone had an additional black color, he slowly walked towards a small town at the end of the road. After entering the small town, Lin Ling saw that the environment of the small town was not very good. It was somewhat shabby and the ground was somewhat dirty. It was somewhat different from the isolated small town he imagined. However, as more and more people gathered around, Lin Ling also knew that this was a place where dragons and snakes mixed together. The most important thing was that the order here was much more chaotic than in the final world. But for Lin Ling it was the same everywhere. He had long been used to it. Let me go, let me go. What do you want?" At this moment, a woman's pained voice suddenly came from an inn in front of them. Looking carefully, they saw a young girl around 18 or 19 years old being grabbed by the arm by a bald man with a ferocious face. The man was obviously not a good person, and he was currently smiling lecherously. As for the surrounding cultivators, they all frowned at this moment. They seemed to be somewhat accustomed to this. Perhaps they also knew that if they wanted to be the hero to save the beauty, they must have the strength to defeat the bald man. But for this, most of them obviously did not have such confidence. "Sir, you've been staring at me for a long time. Are you not convinced?" Sigh. The bald man hugged the young woman and smelled her fragrance. His gaze suddenly looked towards the other side of the inn and spoke. There, a man was sitting with his back to them. This man had elegant long hair that scattered over half of his face. His sharp gaze was faintly discernible through his hair, giving off an extremely sharp feeling. Snatching a woman in broad daylight. Lawless. Lawless. The purple-clothed man suddenly spoke indifferently. "Husband, save me." Seeing that someone was willing to step forward, the beautiful woman shouted excitedly. "Don't worry, I will save you." The purple-clothed man drank a mouthful of wine and then slammed the table. On the table, an exquisite sword shot out. After the purple-clothed man grasped it, a purple sword flower was shaken out. Kacha. It was as if thunder had struck the inn. The moment the purple sword appeared, the sturdy tables began to crack from the inside. It was extremely terrifying. Purple Mist Swordsman? As for the bald man, the corner of his mouth curled into a cold smile. The blood behind him churned and rushed into the sky, forming a large blood mist. Within the blood mist, a palm shot out and stirred up the blood mist like a tidal vortex. Rumble. What was even more terrifying was that the blood mist palm actually blocked the purple-clothed man's sword. With such little strength, you want to be the hero to save the beauty? You're a coward. The bald man immediately laughed in disdain. His words made the purple-clothed man's face gloomy. He suddenly bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood on the sword. The tip of the sword suddenly lit up. From the tip to the blade and finally to the hilt, the entire sword instantly lit up. Then an ethereal white-haired old man floated out from the sword. Sanqing above. The purple-clothed man's expression became dignified. His sword was no longer purple but an ancient green color. His sword stabbed towards the bald man. This sword was like a high mountain and flowing water, like a white horse galloping through a crack, causing the bald man to be unable to see through it. However, at the critical moment he opened his right hand, sucked the beautiful woman over, and then used her to block in front of him. Not good. The purple-clothed man clearly didn't expect the bald man to use this move. He die. Seeing that the purple-clothed man didn't dare to use his sword, the bald man controlled the blood wave with both hands and slammed it forward. The purple-clothed man was immediately injured, and it wasn't light. Despicable. He wanted to stand up, but his bones were injured, so it was impossible. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too perverted. Since you wanted to kill me, why did you hold back? You should know that if you held back, I would have killed many more innocent girls. So, you're being too soft-hearted. The bald man pushed the beautiful woman away and said with a laugh, I see that the sword on your body is extraordinary. You should have some background. Moreover, you are so young but your strength is so strong. I think you must have a lot of treasures on you. Ah. He laughed as he walked towards the purple-clothed man. He looked at the people around the inn and said, Who dares to save the beauty? Come, if you don't, then you're trash. The surrounding cultivators had already hidden hundreds of meters away. Hearing those arrogant words, some people didn't want to accept it, but they were stopped by others. After all, even someone as strong as the purple Miss Swordsman was defeated. If they went up, it would be tantamount to suicide. Let him go, or don't blame me for being merciless. Just as the bald man grabbed the purple-clothed man, a faint sneer suddenly sounded. He looks like there's a knife above the word lust. Many people know about it, but many people can't see through it. The bald man suddenly sneered and slowly turned around. However, with just one glance, he was immediately stunned. Chapter 3494. Celestial Sex. The surrounding people were also stunned. Because suddenly, a man in a large cloak had appeared behind the beautiful woman. He stretched out his hand, and his thumb and index finger were lightly holding the woman's neck. It seemed as if he would kill her if she moved even a little. But fucking hell, that woman was a hostage. Everyone thought that this guy had gone crazy and couldn't figure out the truth. Are you stupid? If you catch her, do you think I'll listen to you? I can catch as many little girls like her as I want. If you have the ability, then kill her. The bald man couldn't help but laugh as he spoke leisurely. However, just as he finished speaking, the mysterious man actually used force, causing the girl to have difficulty breathing. This made everyone even more confused. By now, they felt that the bald man was good and the mysterious man was bad. Interesting. Fine. I'll let him go. Kid, if you have the guts, tell me your name. At this moment, the bald man nodded slightly as if he didn't care at all. Let him go first. If you want to catch up, I'll accompany you later. That mysterious person said in a carefree manner. Seeing this, the bald man had no choice but to release the purple-clothed man. The purple-clothed man stroked his chest and walked towards the mysterious man. His eyes were filled with gratitude. That's more like it. By the way, didn't you ask for my name earlier? My name is Justice. Seeing that the purple-clothed man was released, the mysterious man said slowly, Justice. I'll uphold justice for your entire family. At this moment, even the purple-clothed man hid his gratitude and revealed a slightly disdainful gaze, let alone the other onlookers. Because would true justice kidnap a weak girl to blackmail her? The bald man was still quite manly. In the end, he couldn't bear to see the girl being killed and personally released her. Speaking of justice, the bald man seemed to be more like it. Senior, this seems a little shameless. The purple-clothed man finally couldn't bear it any longer and grumbled. You're just a child. You're inexperienced. Naturally, you don't know what's going on. However, the mysterious man looked at him with disdain. Ah. The purple-clothed man walked very close to the mysterious man. Through the brim of his hat, he could see that the mysterious man seemed to be younger than him. I see that you're not convinced. Since that's the case, you'd better pay attention. However, this time around he sent a voice transmission to the purple-clothed man. The purple-clothed man nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, the mysterious man released the beautiful woman. Then he smiled faintly and said, All right, we've reconciled. You want your people and I want mine. Since we've hit it off, let's mind our own business. After he finished speaking, he walked out of the tavern in large strides. This caused everyone to be extremely suspicious. However, after the bald man saved the beautiful woman, they looked at each other, and a huge black and red aura instantly erupted. The entire inn instantly cracked open and a strange monster appeared. The lower half of the monster was a scorpion, but there was a snake above the scorpion. It was a pitch-black snake. What? Are they together? At this moment, the purple-clothed man finally came to his senses. Previously he had obviously been deceived. Damn it, this also meant that he had been injured for nothing. Kid, I don't know where you came from, but since you dared to ruin my plans, I'll make sure you stay here forever. The scorpion monster spoke in human language. Kid, originally, we didn't want to reveal our identities so quickly. It's all your fault. But since you've exposed our identities, you'll have to bear our wrath. The black snake also spoke in human language, but it was a female voice. Next, the strange scorpion monster stirred up a storm of blood and charged toward the mysterious man. How terrifying. The surrounding people could sense the monster's power, and their faces turned pale with fright. Big brother, be careful. As for the purple-clothed man, he also shouted anxiously. However, he was seriously injured. He wanted to help, but there was nothing he could do. His eyes immediately became more anxious because the mysterious man was targeted by the monster because he was trying to save him. At this moment, the mysterious man finally took off his cloak, revealing a handsome face. He smiled slightly, and then before the huge monster arrived, he kicked it out. Rumble. This kick was so terrifying that the huge monster was kicked into two halves. Its internal organs spilled all over the ground, and smelly blood was everywhere. The surrounding people were all dumbfounded. One kick. However, the monster that was a combination of scorpion and poisonous snake was kicked to death. This was too fucking awesome. Finally, I found some world's will. However, the mysterious man ignored everyone's surprise. Instead, he was looking for something in the dirty corpse. After a moment, his face finally lit up. And he was Lin Ling. Speaking of which, if it wasn't for the purple-clothed man, Lin Ling would have needed a lot of effort to find this person from the world's will. Therefore, after Lin Ling put away the things he found in the corpse, he looked up at the purple-clothed man and smiled. Previously, he found some world's will in the corpse, which made the milk-colored stone have an additional layer of darkness. It was said that if the stone was completely black, it could take away the world's will. Although Lin Ling didn't understand why it was like this, his task was to bring the world's will, that's all. Senior, could it be that you're a celestial immortal? The purple-clothed man was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly knelt down. Lin Ling shook his head speechlessly. What celestial immortal? Last month I also saw a celestial immortal as powerful as you in the Shannan Mountain, so I guess that you must be a celestial immortal. The purple-clothed man said again. This made Lin Ling curious and he asked, what kind of celestial immortal are you talking about? Because if it was a celestial immortal, it would be a powerhouse from the final world, and it might be a competitor. It's a celestial immortal sect called Immortal Temple. The purple-clothed man immediately said, which made Lin Ling's pupils constrict. Immortal Temple? 9 states 10 evils? He quickly asked, how can you be sure? Also, did you see a very beautiful woman? Because they just came here and needed a guide, so they asked people from our sect to help. After talking, we found out that they are called Immortal Temple. As for the woman, there is indeed one. Diske, she's simply a fairy. It's also the first time I've seen such a beautiful woman in my life. The purple-clothed man said one after another. Hearing this, Lin Ling became more and more excited. Could it be that senior sister you also came here? Moreover, she was from Immortal Temple, what was she doing here? Could it be that she was related to the world's will? Or was she also a trial taker of God? For a moment, Lin Ling was somewhat suspicious, but he knew that only when he saw in Yuer, all of this would be revealed. Chapter 3495. The Battle of the Puddle. Thank you, Senior Justice. Alright, I have something to do, so I'll leave first. After asking the purple-robed man for directions, Lin Ling rushed over without stopping. Moreover, since the Immortal Temple had arrived here before them, they might have found the world's will first. As he moved forward, Lin Ling gradually discovered that more and more experts appeared along the way. These experts were stronger than the warriors of this world. According to logic, they shouldn't be from this world. Sir, why are you here? Under the ancient Green Mountain, when Lin Ling was about to hurry on his way, a powerhouse immediately stopped him. Is this your home? Do I need your permission to go anywhere? Lin Ling looked at this group of people indifferently, as if he wanted to see something from them. At this moment, without waiting for Lin Ling to say anything, those people had already rushed over. Their bodies emitted a black light, causing their strength to increase by several times in an instant. Unfortunately, this strength was very strong in the Literati star, but it was useless in front of Lin Ling, who came from the final world. Whoosh! The tyrannical song sword immediately appeared in Lin Ling's hand. He slashed with the sword and killed the person in front of him. The remaining people's expressions changed, but they didn't run away. They still tried to find an opportunity to give Lin Ling a fatal blow. Unfortunately, they were still killed by Lin Ling with a single slash. After dealing with these people, Lin Ling continued to move forward, but more and more experts appeared along the way. Moreover, these experts all had a similar characteristic, and that was the black light on their bodies. This made Lin Ling guess that these people might be related to the world's will. No wonder these people were so strong. Rumble. Not long after, deafening sounds came from the front, as if some fierce battle was happening. Lin Ling couldn't help but look over with his 10,000 elephant magic eyes and immediately discovered that there was a huge puddle in front of him. A large number of experts swam out from the bottom of the water and then collided with the surrounding experts. Looking at the surrounding experts, one of them was from the Immortal Temple. Because of the characteristics of the Immortal Temple, all of them were monks. Lin Ling also instantly became excited. He stopped and looked into the distance. He saw that among the countless old monks, a woman in a white dress was standing there quietly. She was holding a green sword in her hand like a fairy. Lin Ling's eyes were moist. And Yuer. Since Lin Ling since Qing province disappeared, senior and Yuer editor, Dark God Dark God Dark God Dark Godler. Now he had almost traveled the entire 9 provinces and finally he saw Yuer again. At that moment, Lin Ling felt like he had returned to the time when he was in the Guyan sect. At that time he was still a weak young man, and his senior sister had helped him. His senior sister was also the first person who had helped him since Lin Ling had arrived in this world. Senior sister has reached the martial progenitor realm. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Lin Ling checked with his 10,000 elephant magic eyes, and was shocked again. The martial progenitor realm was an expert who had accumulated countless cultivation resources. However, in the Immortal Temple, Yuer had reached the martial progenitor realm faster than Lin Ling. This also showed how important Yuer was to the Immortal Temple. Furthermore, the situation doesn't seem right. Lin Ling's gaze once again landed on the huge puddle. He discovered that a huge whirlpool had appeared in the puddle, and there seemed to be a strange force at the bottom of the whirlpool. Furthermore, that miraculous power actually gave off a feeling of life and intelligence. Could this be the will of the world that he was looking for? Lin Ling's eyes finally lit up, and he immediately took out the milk-colored stone from his chest. He immediately discovered that the black force in the stone was gathering in the direction of the puddle. This meant that the will of the world that Lei Gong was looking for was indeed in the puddle. However, how was he going to collect the will of the world? Could it be that he was relying on the stone in his hand? Lin Ling kept guessing and he looked around the puddle. He discovered that other than the Immortal Temple, there were also experts from other forces. These experts were not only fighting against the people who had rushed out of the puddle, but they were also occasionally fighting with each other. It was obvious that their target was the will of the world. So many people are trying to seize the will of the world? Could they all be trial takers? Lin Ling could not help but feel suspicious. He even guessed that Yuer could be a trial taker. However, Yuer was one of the 9 states' 10 evils, and it was unlikely that she was a deity's subordinate. Regardless, I should observe the situation before taking action. Lin Ling did not plan to do anything for the time being, and he chose to observe. While he was observing, the experts who had walked out of the puddle were getting stronger and stronger. There were existences comparable to the late-stage martial ancestor realm. These people were no different from martial ancestor realm experts, but they were proficient in using power, and seemed to be innately stronger than Jie Yuan. Moreover, they all had spiritual intelligence and were even very clear-headed. However, they still prevented everyone from approaching the puddle. This made Lin Ling guess that these people had been invaded by the will of the world. Although they did not lose their spiritual intelligence, their mentality had changed. On the other side, the Immortal Temple and another unknown organization were fighting against the experts who had walked out of the puddle. Of course, they would occasionally fight with each other. The strongest of the Immortal Temple was a late-stage martial ancestor realm Elder Xian, and the unknown organization was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. Although this middle-aged man's realm was lower, his talent was stronger, so his strength was roughly the same as that Elder Xian. Looking at the experts below them, the Immortal Temple was Yuer, and the other side was a man and a woman. Lin Ling did not recognize the man, but the woman. Lin Ling's pupils immediately trembled. It was Long Yang. Why did he meet this woman everywhere? Moreover, every time she appeared, the place she appeared in was extremely extraordinary. Logically speaking, she should not be qualified to come in contact with so many people. Lin Ling's wariness towards Dragon Mother involuntarily increased by another notch. This was because he, Lin Ling, was constantly becoming stronger, but so was Long Yang. They were walking on the same path in the same world. If Lin Ling slowed down one day, Long Yang would definitely surpass him. Based on the hatred between the two of them, the one who would be killed at that time would be Lin Ling. It's a pity that the man beside Long Yang is very strong. Otherwise, this would be an excellent opportunity. Then Lin Ling secretly shook his head. At this moment, Long Yang and Inyuer clearly had their eyes on the power in the puddle. However, for some reason they did not dare to rush down rashly. Moreover, they did not want to give up easily. Therefore, they could only continue to fight at the edge of the puddle. Haha, Inyuer, it's been a long time. After the two sides fought for a while, Long Yang suddenly stopped and said with a smile. On the other side, Inyuer's expression was ice cold and she ignored him. Where's your lover? Has he forgotten about you? Haha, your little lover is really amazing. He's a famous figure in the 9 prefectures, one of the 4th leaders of the God-slaying alliance, and he knows a few of the 9 prefectures' 10 evils. I heard that he went to the final world. He's a heartless man. That's why I said that you can't trust men. Chapter 3496. The first sage realm from 10,000 years ago. This was because Inyuer was far too powerful. She possessed 6 great god eyes and that was not all. She was also a martial ancestor. Moreover, she had a hidden power within her. Thus, she had no chance of defeating him in a clash of strength. Moreover, Inyuer's opponent was powerful. Her opponent was the former first sage, Jianghu, who was also known as the first sage in the 9 regions. Although this general term was from a very long time ago, it was enough to show his strength. Although this person was at the peak of the saint stage, he was able to fight on par with Inyuer and was not at a disadvantage at all. On the other side, Lin Ling wanted to help. However, after hearing Long Yang's words, he stopped and looked at Inyuer carefully. Unfortunately, he could not see any emotion on Inyuer's face. It was as if Inyuer did not know Lin Ling at all. This made Lin Ling frown. When he was chased by the 5th demon elder at the Heavenly King Mountain of the Yen province, it was senior sister Yuer who came to save him. How could she not remember him? In fact, even Long Yang frowned. She did not expect Inyuer to be so unaffected. She thought for a while and said, Lin Ling has gone to Snow City in the final world. In the final world, sometimes strength is not everything. Having a background is the most important thing. Obviously, Lin Ling does not have any background. Therefore, I saw him offending a duke's son in Snow City. Although it happened a long time ago, I think that guy has been skinned even if he is not dead. As soon as he said this, Inyuer, who was originally as pure as ice and as pure as jade, finally had a flicker in her eyes. This flicker was not suitable in a battle between experts. As long as the opponent was not much weaker than you could seize this weakness and attack it. Jianghu snorted and stretched his giant hand behind him. The wind and clouds in the sky rolled. One finger reverses the universe. A giant finger suppressed Inyuer with 30% of the ancestral power. Moreover, Gangshuo's innate talent was quite strange. She was a white-robed witch with a white horsetail whisk in her hand. She kept swinging it back and forth as if it was providing a magical power to Gangshu. That giant finger was naturally blocked by Inyuer's divine punishment god's eyes. 2 fingers moves the world. However, the second finger immediately arrived, and before the first finger had even finished, the second finger had already followed up. Now, Inyuer's pressure unless she wanted to use that sealed power. Saintess. The elder from the immortal temple in the distance suddenly shouted anxiously. Was to warn Inyuer or Inyuer not to be careful. Or Inyuer not. However, Inyuer didn't seem to have much choice now. Haha, you're a tall and strong man, yet you're bullying a girl. Do you still have any shame? At this moment, Lin Ling finally appeared. How could he watch someone bully his wife? Especially when he saw Inyuer being affected because she was worried about him, he felt extremely touched. Therefore, he instantly appeared in front of Inyuer. He stretched out his right hand and his entire arm became pitch black, as if it was made of black steel. Moreover, it quietly turned into a dragon claw. Boom. Then Lin Ling clawed out. Rumble. The two collided and the impact swept out in all directions. Gangshu was immediately sent flying. When he stopped, he immediately looked in front of him in disbelief. In front of him, a mysterious person wearing a large black cloak appeared. However, his arm was very long and pitch black. It was extremely strange. What was the background of this ferocious person? Even Longyang frowned and cursed secretly. She had almost forced Inyuer into a difficult situation before, but this person suddenly came out to cause trouble and ruined her plans. As for Inyuer, her expression remained unchanged. She even looked at Lin Ling's back without any gratitude. Lin Ling didn't care about this. The reason why he wore a cloak was not to bring any surprises. Instead, he wanted Inyuer to remember him forever when he took off the cloak. In the past, he had the opportunity to bring Inyuer back, but he failed in the end. This caused him to feel guilty toward Yu and the others. This was also a knot in Lin Ling's heart. Lin Ling knew the reasons for his failure. First, he wasn't strong enough. Second, Inyuer had lost her memory. Therefore, Lin Ling really cared about whether Inyuer had recovered her memory or not. Who the hell are you? After Gang's-ho steadied himself, he immediately asked in a low voice. I should be the one asking you this question. You don't look like a martial ancestor, but your combat strength is not bad. This strength is worthy of praise. Lin Ling looked at Gang's-ho and said calmly. Through the previous collision, he immediately knew that Gangsho's strength was not simple. His talent was probably in the 5th grade. I'm Gangsho, the #1 sage in the 9 provinces 10,000 years ago. Ignorant kid, have you heard of my name? Gangsho said proudly when he saw Lin Ling's unconcerned tone. The #1 sage in the 9 provinces 10,000 years ago. Lin Ling's eyes immediately flickered. No wonder he was so powerful. It turned out that he was indeed famous. However, he quickly smiled and said, Senior, the #1 sage in the 9 provinces 10,000 years ago, I don't know how impressive you were back then. However, 10,000 years have passed and you're still in the sage realm? The senior? No, brother, don't tell me you think the sage realm is the limit of the martial path? Or do you think you're wasting your time cultivating? You haven't made any progress for 10,000 years. His voice was filled with mockery, causing Inyuer to be startled. It was the first time she looked at Lin Ling with a strange expression. She did not expect this mysterious man to provoke Gangsho. Long Yang, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. Is that guy crazy? Even though the leader had been eliminated, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This was not something that a junior like him could say. Moreover, this junior did not seem to be a martial ancestor expert. The gang leader was stunned. His face gradually turned from majestic to ashen and finally red. It was obvious that this was his scar, but someone insisted on exposing it. Are you angry from embarrassment? No wonder you haven't made any progress in the past 10,000 years. It turns out that you can't be criticized. Unfortunately, in the martial path, if you can't face your own flaws and avoid talking about them, you'll be stuck in the sage realm for the rest of your life. Therefore, I can see that you'll still be in the sage realm in another 10,000 years. However, Lin Ling seemed to be unaware of Gangsho's anger and said to himself, one finger imprisoning heaven and earth. Chapter 3497. Translator. Nyoibo Studio Editor. Nyoibo Studio I can't remember. Seeing this, Lin Ling's eyes flashed. Although Gangsho was only in the sage realm, he had been in the sage realm for 10,000 years. His foundation was extremely deep and this was also a powerful asset. Looking up at the blood-red finger, Lin Ling used the realm-swallowing beast's talent and dominating song sword. He tried his best to activate 30% of his ancestor's power and slashed toward the sky. Clang. The sound of metal colliding was heard. The moment the sword and the bloody finger collided, countless golden stars shot out. The sound had the power to shatter one's soul. However, the bloody finger was blocked by Lin Ling's sword. At this moment, Longyang and Inyuer's expressions changed. They never expected this mysterious person to be so strong. Looking at Lin Ling's sword, both of them felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. One finger seals life and death. Gangsho roared again, causing the giant finger to turn golden. Seeing this, Lin Ling did not dare to be arrogant. After all, Gangsho was the first sage realm 10,000 years ago. Although he was an outdated figure looking at the current Jojo, who would dare to say that he was the first sage realm expert? Therefore, this showed how extraordinary Gangsho's strength was. Unfortunately, although Gangsho dominated an era, he could not follow the era. He could not escape the truth of being eliminated. This was also the Yangtze River's new generation surpassing the old. And Lin Ling was the wave that came after. This time, Lin Ling also activated the double dragon talent and integrated it into his talent. His strength reached 6,000 realms, and his speed reached 600 realms. His integrated talent reached the 4th grade. In a situation where no one could see through, he reached the sky above the golden finger in the sky. His claws pierced into it, and then domineeringly tore the golden finger into pieces. The whole process was simple and violent, but also domineering and magnificent. Longyang, who was far away, covered her mouth with her small hand. She was completely shocked by this scene. How could someone be so strong? Was this a dream? Moreover, from the monster there seemed to be a familiar smell. Yes, it was the Dragon Clan. What? As for Steel Hand, he did not believe that his attack had been destroyed in such a straightforward manner. After all, he was the #1 sage. You're old. At the same time, the monster in the sky moved its eyebrows, and an ancient stone tablet fell from the sky, directly suppressing the hand to the ground, unable to move. In the past 10,000 years, because you believed in the rules, you completely gave up on yourself. So you used all your time to improve your strength and completely gave up on improving your realm. How pitiful. Although the improvement of the realm is sometimes the least important to an expert, the realm of a warrior determines the upper limit. Moreover, no matter how powerful the martial god was in the past, he couldn't avoid going through some realms of the martial way. This is the principle that the world will never change. But you didn't go through it, how can you be strong? Lin Ling looked down at the Jianghu on the ground and said. He shook his head in disdain. If it were me, I wouldn't believe it. No wonder you could only dominate 10,000 years ago. Shut up. On the ground, the Jianghu finally roared. How do you know that I didn't try to break through? You don't know anything. You only know how to judge people from a high point of view. You're just that kind of person. Look at you, you're really not convinced. Hearing this, Lin Ling laughed. It was a sarcastic and disdainful smile. Then let me ask you, how many years have you tried to break through? 100 years? 200 years? 300 years? 1,000 years? 2,000 years? 3,000 years? The Jianghu could not refute Lin Ling's question. He had only tried for 1,000 years. After 1,000 years of cultivation he had no effect, so he completely gave up. If I were you, I would still try at this moment. Seeing that the Jianghu stopped talking, Lin Ling said lightly, and then returned to his original appearance. The Gangshu's heart was roaring. He did not expect that Lin Ling would try for 10,000 years just to break a legend. This legend had been verified by countless predecessors, and it could be confirmed that there was no hope of breaking through. Perhaps this was the gap between him and Lin Ling. Senior sister, you. Ignoring the Jianghu, Lin Ling slowly looked at Annuer. Annuer had been looking at Lin Ling before, but when Lin Ling looked at her, she had already restrained the complicated expression on her face. However, she did not expect to meet this man again. This man who had once been stabbed by her sword but had never blamed her. Towards this man, she only had an indescribable feeling. Although she did not have any impression of this man. However, there was always a voice in her heart telling her that even if she forgot the blooming and falling leaves, even if she forgot the night wind and the quiet moon, even if she forgot time and heaven and earth, she could not forget him. It was precisely because of this sentence that she had a special feeling for this man. At this moment, when Lin Ling saw Annuer's expressionless face, he felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. Why didn't senior sister Yu recognize him? But when Longyang talked about him, senior sister Yu was really worried. And when the 5th demon elder was chasing after him, if she didn't care about him, she wouldn't have stopped him with her life. I just owe you a favor, so I want to return it to you. That's all. The two looked at each other for a long time, and Annuer finally said indifferently. This made Lin Ling angry. He looked for Annuer everywhere, not because he wanted to hear this from Annuer. Moreover, Yu and the others did not want to hear this either. They wanted Annuer to go home. You're talking nonsense. Lin Ling rushed towards Annuer like a madman, which made Longyang frown in the distance. According to her understanding of Lin Ling was a devil who would do anything to achieve his goal. Moreover, he did things without principle and killed people like flies. But it was undeniable that Lin Ling was very stubborn when it came to feelings. Because last time, Annuer stabbed Lin Ling with her sword, she was also present at that time. And now, she was there again as if God had arranged for her to be a witness. How dare you? However, just as Lin Ling was about to approach Annuer, an angry roar sounded. Then, a huge swastika fell from the sky, carrying 90% of the ancestral power. It sealed Lin Ling's body and suppressed him from the sky. And the one who attacked was really that elder from the Immortal Temple. With Lin Ling's current strength, how could he be a match for that elder? He was immediately suppressed and fell towards the pool of water. This scene made the expressions of Long Yang and the others change drastically. Because there was a restriction in the pool of water, they didn't dare to approach it. Moreover, the restriction hadn't disappeared, so if Lin Ling fell into it, wouldn't he die without a doubt? But at this moment, a beautiful figure floated past like white clothes that were whiter than snow. She actually followed Lin Ling into the pool of water. Saintus. Chapter 3498. The world will had invaded. But at this moment the sacred swastika covered Lin Ling's body, pressing him into the water like a palm. By the time Lin Ling reacted, it was already too late. He could only hear the sound of the water around him, as if he had entered a wonderful world. The first thing he felt was that the boundary essence in his body seemed to be changing. For example, the boundary essence in his first dantian, the fire boundary essence, seemed to have something more. Lin Ling instantly guessed that those experts who had been changed by the will of the world were more than 10 times stronger than before. It turned out that their boundary essence was indeed different. And now, his first dantian's boundary essence was transforming. Did this mean that he was going to become a person of the world's will? How could this be? No, it was completely impossible. Lin Ling sneered in his heart. He had been practicing martial arts for so long. If he wanted to rely on illusions, bewitchment, and other methods to change himself, it was simply impossible. However, at this moment, an ancient voice resounded in Lin Ling's ears. The world was flawless. He saw a beautiful world. Birds chirped, flowers bloomed, and peach blossoms bloomed. It was like a pure land. There were a large number of cute animals here. It was isolated from the rest of the world and people would not be shocked by it. It made the whole world full of vitality. But gradually humans began to be born. In the beginning they were like the animals, isolated from the world. But as time passed, perhaps because of their confidence or ambition, they did not want to be one of them. They wanted to dominate. Therefore they took action and began to dominate the world. In the end, the entire world was dominated by humans. Of course, the world was still beautiful after being dominated by humans. It was just that there was an additional distinction between nobility and lowliness. However, a person's heart would never be satisfied. Humans began to kill each other. They fought for the throne, fought for benefits, fought for everything. As time passed, humans began to practice martial arts. From ancient ruins, they learned some of the great Tao of heaven and earth, causing the entire world to have a brief moment of peace. However, this good time didn't last long. For treasures, for cultivation methods, for inheritances, for dignity, the war began once again. Endless slaughter and battle. After a certain period of time, this kind of battle would end, but after a certain period of time, this kind of battle would start. That was originally a beautiful and pure new world. However, under the ambitions of various powerful species, it was riddled with scars and turned into the 9 provinces. Each province was then divided into fragments and turned into a myriad of worlds. However, those powerful species and humans did not care about him at all. They only wanted to become stronger. Of course, there were also many kind-hearted humans. However, their kindness was mostly seen from the perspective of their own kind. They did not care about other races at all. Most importantly, these powerful species, regardless of whether they were humans or something else, seemed to have an endless battle. Therefore, the will hidden in this beautiful world had finally decided to purify the world. A long time ago this world had been purified by that wisp of will, and most of the powerful species had died. In the end, that wisp of will disappeared again, hiding in the depths of this beautiful world, continuing to shoulder the mission of protecting the world. But now, world cleansing was about to begin again. All of this seemed to take a long time, but in reality, it was like a mysterious light that was instantly imprinted in Lin Ling's heart, allowing him to understand everything. Especially human greed, slaughter, betrayal, abandonment, and so on. This made Lin Ling's heart turn gloomy. Speaking of slaughter, he himself was also someone who had endless slaughter. But in the past he did not care at all. He only cared about the people around him. However, after falling into the pool he felt a sense of guilt for the first time. His eyes also began to turn black. It looks like this Lin Ling is about to become the world's will. And after he changes, I'm afraid none of us here can stop him. Yes, before we fought the strongest in the pool. They were only the strongest in this world. After being changed by the world's will, their strength increased by more than 100 times. If it's him, not to mention 100 times, even if his strength increased by 10 times, none of us would be a match for him. Then can we take action and bring him up? This is beneficial to all of us. It's useless. Look, his boundary essence has begun to change. Right now, I'm afraid he's already the world's will. The experts by the pool all frowned and said, their expressions extremely solemn. Everything was as they said. Not only could the world's will change a person's will and thoughts, but it could also change a person's boundary essence. Only after both were successfully changed could one become the world's will. However, the experts by the pool did not know that Lin Ling had 5 dantians. So, if he wanted to change his boundary essence, it would take a long time. On the contrary, when Lin Ling's will and thoughts wavered, he immediately sensed a fragrant wind blowing over. Then, the swastika on his body was removed. A familiar figure appeared. Her clothes were whiter than snow, and her temperament was like ice. It was an Yuer. However, at this moment, her eyes were filled with worry, and it was revealed without any disguise. The moment he saw her, Lin Ling's previously shaken thoughts were instantly blown away as if they had been blown away by a storm. Yes, humans were selfish, but humans also had love. The world's will had observed humans, deities, ghosts, and demons for countless years. It thought that it understood them very well, so it planned to purify the world. However, it was only observing. It could not understand the kind of love between humans, the kind of sacrifice for others. Just like now, Yuer clearly said that she did not recognize him, but when she saw that he was in danger, she was the first and only person to rush over. This was enough to prove everything. Lin Ling's eyes gradually regained clarity. Are you okay? Yuer saw that Lin Ling's eyes had recovered instantly, and she could not help but ask in surprise. What do you think? Lin Ling smiled excitedly. Before Yuer could react, he pulled Yuer into his arms. He hugged Yuer tightly as if he was afraid that she would run away. In this life I won't let you leave again. This is my promise. After hugging Yuer tightly, Lin Ling said word by word. Yuer's body trembled, and her heart was beating wildly. Previously, when she saw Lin Ling being attacked by the elders and falling into the pool, she did not even think about it. Who knew that Lin Ling would be fine, and this guy actually took advantage of her. However, when she wanted to resist, her heart rejected it. Especially those dignified words as well as that masculine voice, made her suddenly like this feeling very much. Chapter 3499. Divine Bodyguard Mansion. Be careful. Being hugged by Lin Ling, Yuer did not resist, but looked at the depths of the puddle and said, "It's fine, the will of the world can't change me, so you can only submit to me." Lin Ling shook his head indifferently, then looked deeply at Yuer, and told her about the yearning of Yu and the others. Yuer listened quietly, her heart was moved, and even the memories she lost suddenly became very important. She wanted to know the bits and pieces of the past with Lin Ling, and also wanted to know the bits and pieces of the past with Yu and the others. Not good, Lin Ling look. However, she immediately reminded him again because the two of them were getting closer and closer to the bottom of the puddle. Seeing this, Lin Ling smiled, stretched out his right hand, and a milk-colored stone appeared, and gently patted the bottom of the puddle. With this pat, a sudden change occurred. The entire puddle rolled even more violently, as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Even the surroundings of the puddle were filled with terrifying astral winds. The expression of the immortal temple elder Long Yang and the other experts changed drastically. Could it be that he is also a trial taker? On the ground, Gang Shou was stunned and could not help but shout angrily. At the same time, Long Yang's face was ashen. The two of them did not expect that Lin Ling seemed to be looking for Yuer, but in fact, his real goal was the will of the world. What a good diversion, they were all fooled. If they knew that Lin Ling came for the will of the world, they would not have let Lin Ling get close to the center of the puddle. Especially the immortal temple elder, he had already started to retreat, but at the same time he was also extremely vexed. Because Lin Ling was pushed down by him, he thought that Lin Ling would definitely die, but who knew that not only was Lin Ling fine, but he was also a trial taker and could subdue this part of the will of the world. There was only one goal for all of them to gather here, and that was the will of the world. But in the end they did not get anything. Boom. The previous puddle had exploded with a terrifying shockwave. The power of the will of the world was able to push the power of a wisp of wind into a grade 10 gale. Therefore, the entire literati star immediately broke apart into pieces that floated in the void. At this moment, two figures rushed out from another direction. They were Lin Ling and Yuer. Lin Ling looked at literati star behind him and sighed. Then he led Yuer forward again. As for Yuer, she let Lin Ling hold her hand. Her face was a little red, but she didn't say anything for a while. After a long time, Yuer finally spoke, "Lin Ling, I'm very sorry, but I still have to go back." What? Lin Ling's body trembled. He stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at Yuer seriously. Yuer lowered her head slightly and said, "Because actually I didn't find your memories. I just have a very, very familiar feeling towards you, so I have always treated you as one of us. It's okay, as long as we are together, that memory will be found sooner or later." "All right." Lin Ling immediately smiled and waved his hand. "But I can't do it. I feel that it is unfair to you to be with you based on my feelings. So, if I really want to go back, I want to go back as the real Yuer, not as the Holy Maiden." "All right." Yuer took a step forward and suddenly tapped Lin Ling's cheek gently, which made Lin Ling stunned. "In fact, you should know that even if I didn't find my memories, I have already treated you as my man." "All right." Yuer's voice was extremely soft when she said the last sentence. Lin Ling was stunned again. He stared at Yuer, who lowered her head and blushed. He finally smiled and said, "I understand, everyone has their own things to do. I can't tie you to my side just because you are my wife. Don't worry, we will wait for you." "Okay." Yuer nodded gratefully. After looking deeply at Lin Ling, she finally left reluctantly. At the moment she left, she realized how uncomfortable she felt after leaving this man. However, this made her want to know what her lost memories were even more. Because they were definitely very important. No matter what, she was sure that she was Lin Ling's wife in the past. Looking at Yuer leaving, Lin Ling's eyes were also filled with reluctance. However, this time, it was as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. Although he still didn't bring Yuer back this time, in fact, he had succeeded. Moreover, he had also obtained the will of the world. This trip was a great success. Lin Ling continued to fly forward, but he also took out the milk-colored stone in his hand. However, the stone was now pitch black, and it didn't have the terrifying feeling that he had imagined. The will of the world sealed in the stone reacted very calmly. "You brat, other than brainwashing, what else can you do?" Lin Ling was disdainful of the will of the world. Purify the world? What a boring action. Moreover, he sensed that the will of the world seemed to be for the beautiful new world, but in fact, it was using its powerful strength to bewitch others. In the end, they were controlled by the will of the world. Therefore, as long as someone had ambition, they would be easily controlled. He no longer paid attention to the will of the world. Not long after, a large group of people appeared in front of him. This group of people was well equipped and walked in the void of the universe. Moreover, there were countless experts and their aura was extraordinary. When he saw the large group of people, Lin Ling was stunned for a moment. Finally, his gaze fell on the silk banner of the group of people. Bodyguards. Bodyguards of bodyguards? Lin Ling muttered to himself. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and looked at the departing group with ill intentions. Bodyguards of bodyguards of bodyguards. During the great battle of the Yan province, this force had come together with the Flame Emperor to capture him. Later on, when Duan Yi of the Duan family came to capture him, they had participated in this matter. Speaking of which, Lin Ling had never provoked them. The grudges of the pugilistic world have always been like this. If you give me a knife, I will return the favor. However, the bodyguards of bodyguards of bodyguards have already slashed me several times. I, Lin Ling, should return the favor. Lin Ling's gaze turned even colder. For the time being, he did not plan to return to the final world. Instead, he headed in the direction of the group of people. The group of bodyguards was heading in the direction of the Horseshoe Realm. When Lin Ling was about to land on the ground, he immediately heard waves of angry curses. Bodyguards of bodyguards of bodyguards, you will die a horrible death. God damn it. Why do you have to kill people every time? Why do you have to kill people every time? Father, mother? Lin Ling looked over and saw that the group of bodyguards had satisfied and enjoyable expressions. A large number of people were kneeling in front of them. They were probably from the Horseshoe Realm. At this moment, some of them were begging for mercy, while others were looking at the group of bodyguards with resentment. Obviously, this was not the first time something like this had happened. Chapter 3500. Lin Ling Lin Ling Lin Ling. Moreover, this place couldn't even be considered as the 9 prefectures. It was merely a small realm in the eastern border. Even escorts are divided into good and evil. Cold laughter rang out, causing Lin Ling's expression to change. He immediately rushed down, but it was already too late. He saw the weapons in the hands of those escorts, be it sabers or spears, but those weapons were all stained with blood. Looking at the ground, he saw more than 10 lives lying on the ground. Some had been severed at the waist, some had their heads chopped off, and some had their limbs severed. Some of them were in their prime, some were elderly, and some were children. After seeing this scene, Lin Ling's eyes instantly turned red. Because he could clearly see that this group of people didn't know any martial arts, while the godly escort family was one of the most powerful forces in the 9 states. How could the godly escort family do something like this? His gaze quietly shifted to the group of people from the godly escort mansion. However, they didn't seem to notice Lin Ling at all. Instead, one of them was attacking the 6-year-old girl. He stepped on her body and raised his butcher's knife up high. With a loud laugh, he was about to behead the little girl. At this moment, Lin Ling roared in his heart. Bang! He disappeared on the spot and reappeared behind the expert. He punched out and the expert froze in place. The butcher knife in his hand was already raised, but it seemed like he would never have the chance to slash down. That was because in everyone's eyes, that person had gone limp like mud. To be able to beat a powerhouse into a pulp, it meant that the punch had directly shattered all the powerhouse's bones. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Ling. Who are you? How dare you kill people from the godly bodyguard mansion? Some people immediately looked at Lin Ling angrily, and their bodies also emitted a terrifying killing intent. Just as he finished speaking, a trembling voice came from beside him. He seems to be Lin Ling. The first person obviously didn't react and shouted angrily, "What do you mean by your Lin, my Lin? I don't care which Lin he is. If I don't kill him today, how can I vent my anger?" After saying that, he finally stared at Lin Ling, but after a glance he subconsciously took a step back. Lin Ling, Lin Ling. Obviously he had recognized Lin Ling. Is that Lin Ling? Lin Ling, Lin Ling. The others, whether they had seen Lin Ling's way or not, they all took a step back as if they had seen a demon. In the godly escort mansion, the name of the son of the devil, Lin Ling, was known to everyone. Run. Without Ling Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao Xiao. On the other hand, Lin Ling wore an icy expression as the aura of the dragon god burst out from his body. Following this, a 5-meter-long dragon bow appeared in his hand. With a flick of his arm, the roar of the dragon god could be heard, followed by the dragon god's arrow being fired. The sky was filled with flying dragon gods at an incredible speed, resulting in a dazzling scene. The people who were running away panicked as they knew that they had no chance of stopping the arrows. They could only run for their lives, but gradually, they realized that it was impossible to escape. Bang bang bang. In just a few breaths' time, corpses fell from the sky as if it were raining. Their bodies were penetrated by the arrows, leaving them dead. Lin Ling frowned as he ignored the corpses on the ground. As a matter of fact, he had already planned to eliminate the Fei Long, Fu Xing, and the Go Dart Studio once he reached the martial progenitor realm. By then he would have the strength to eliminate them. Even if his opponents were the formidable factions of the 9 continents, they would still be useless against him. This was because Lin Ling had Lei Gong as his backer. But now he had changed his mind. He would eliminate the Go Dart Studio first. Firstly, the Go Dart Studio did not expect Lin Ling to eliminate them. Secondly, Lin Ling already had the strength to eliminate the Go Dart Studio. Of course, it was obviously impossible to eliminate them completely, but at least he could eliminate 70 to 80% of their main force, causing this hypocritical organization to collapse. Thank you, my lord, thank you. At this moment, the people around them kowtowed to Lin Ling. Get up. Lin Ling hurriedly helped them up, and then asked why the Go Dart Studio had attacked them. They have a branch here. As long as they complete their mission, they will return to this branch to rest. Because they are bored, they kill the people of the Horseshoe World and even compete to see who can kill more. And not only do they kill people, but they also use the creatures, trees, mountains, and seas here for the competition. Anyway, every competition is a time of great disaster for the Horseshoe World. Yes, this group of people is so powerful, but they are too ruthless. Everyone cursed out loud. They all knew that the Go Dart Studio was very powerful, but they still dared to curse. This also showed how ridiculous the Go Dart Studio was. Then your Realm Lord doesn't care? Lin Ling asked again. The Realm Lord died a long time ago, and the new Realm Lord is the chief deacon of the Go Dart Studio. At first we didn't know, so we asked the new Realm Lord for help. In the end he broke our legs and hung us in the forest to death. Until now no one dares to collect our corpses. An old man said while wiping his tears because the one who died was his brother. And when it came to the sad part, everyone's eyes became moist. Lin Ling looked at them deeply. He had always thought that in a world where the strong were respected, the weak would be bullied, but there was a difference between the weak and the commoners. The commoners had not entered the world of martial arts, and they were even inferior to the weak, so nothing should implicate them. But now he realized that for some crazy warriors, as long as they were weak, they were all the same. "Thank you for saving our lives, sir. It's not good to stay here for a long time. Why don't you come to our tribe?" The old man said again, causing everyone to look at Lin Ling expectantly. Lin Ling wanted to refuse, but he couldn't bear it, so he temporarily agreed. Following the crowd, Lin Ling roughly asked about the location of the Go-Dart studio, and planned to go there at night to find out. Not long after, they arrived at the tribe. The tribe was very old, and Lin Ling felt sad when he saw it because most of the young and strong people had died, leaving behind some old people and children. Lin Ling also quietly left behind some treasures. That night he had dinner with them. After that they chatted for a while. Only when the sky darkened did Lin Ling leave a letter and quietly leave. According to the memory of the route during the day, Lin Ling went to the address of the Go-Dart studio. The forest at night was quiet and silent. As he moved forward, stars gradually appeared in the dark ahead, as if he had arrived at a city. This city was somewhat lively, and he didn't know whether there were more people in the Go-Dart studio, or there were warriors from other places. And outside the city, there was a dried corpse, which made Lin Ling know that this was the person who asked the Realm Lord for help, but in the end, his legs were broken and he was burned to death. Chapter 3501. Map of the Branch. Within the branch, teams of experts were patrolling. They weren't very strong, but Lin Ling didn't want to alert them unless he caught the deacon first. After all, as a deacon he must have some tricks up his sleeve. Lin Ling wasn't afraid of him fighting, he was just afraid that he would run away. After sneaking into the branch, Lin Ling's soul force began to spread out and search through the houses. Finally, he found a short and fat middle-aged man in one of the houses. However, this middle-aged man was as fat as a ball. He was pressing on top of an 18 or 19-year-old girl and was excitedly thrusting. The girl was moaning in pleasure. Lin Ling's soul force swept through and he immediately knew that the middle-aged man was the deacon. Because the tribesman had roughly explained to him what the chief deacon looked like, Lin Ling was able to deduce a few things. Shaking his head, Lin Ling's body disappeared and reappeared in the room. However, what surprised Lin Ling was that the middle-aged man was too engrossed. He was actually still doing that kind of thing and didn't even notice that Lin Ling had entered. Being a dog every day, is it fun? Lin Ling had to interrupt the deacon. The moment his voice came out, the middle-aged man stopped his movements and his whole body quivered. He looked at Lin Ling with the help of the light and continued thrusting. At the same time he said, "Speak, who sent you?" This made Lin Ling stunned. He couldn't help but admire this guy's self-confidence. He didn't even consider his own safety and asked him back. Moreover, at this moment he was still doing this kind of thing. This kind of self-confidence had reached the point of madness. As a realm lord and the deacon of the Divine Escort Mansion, it seems like you can only do things worse than pigs and dogs. Lin Ling couldn't help but shake his head. The middle-aged man immediately glanced at Lin Ling and increased his thrusting speed. He said indifferently, "You should be a country bumpkin who invited you here. No wonder you're so insensible. Wait, after I'm done, I'll play with you." The woman beneath him had long wanted to leave, but she didn't dare to move as the head deacon didn't say anything. She could only continue to cater to him. "You want me to wait? Do you think I have time to wait here?" Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he prepared to attack. Ah! However, before Lin Ling could make a move, the middle-aged man let out a loud roar. His entire body seemed to be leaking something as he sat down on the bed. A moment later, he swaggered out of the bed without even putting on his clothes. Lin Ling was originally furious, but he couldn't help but laugh. "I thought I would have to wait for a long time, but in the end it didn't even take 3 breaths. 3 breaths, man, how sad. Please, 3 breaths don't count as waiting, do you understand?" The middle-aged man swaggered over, but after hearing Lin Ling's words, he was startled at first, then immediately trembled in anger. However, Lin Ling couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He moved and immediately appeared in front of the middle-aged man. The tyrannical song sword appeared in his hand, and with a light flick, the middle-aged man's thing was picked up by the sword. With just a light flick, the man's precious thing would be cut off. Only now did the middle-aged man react. Was this young man so strong? Just as Lin Ling wanted to say something, he suddenly stared at the middle-aged man and couldn't help but laugh. I see that you are tall and strong, but in the end, this thing is so thin and weak like an earthworm, haha. What exactly do you want? The middle-aged man was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Don't be angry, otherwise even if I don't move your little earthworm will be cut off by the sword, because your little earthworm is too small. Now let me ask you a question. After Lin Ling laughed, he said indifferently, are you the head deacon of the branch? How many of them are there in your divine escort mansion? I don't know. The middle-aged man immediately shook his head coldly. I don't know. Lin Ling quietly raised the sword in his hand. Sensing this, the middle-aged man roared, I know, there are a total of 18 branches like ours, and there are a total of 72 branches under the branches. So many? Lin Ling was secretly surprised and then asked, then who are the head deacon of these 18 branches? Don't tell me that they are all head deacons like you, a useless embroidery needle. Don't talk nonsense. In the 18 branches, other than my place, the other places are all experts, and I only have this privilege because my father is a great escort. The middle-aged man immediately said. Then you should know the address of the 18 branches. Tell me everything. Lin Ling said again. This I really don't know. Speaking of this, the middle-aged man obviously didn't dare to speak casually. This was obviously a secret of the divine escort mansion. Shoo. Lin Ling didn't say much nonsense, and with a light flick of his sword, a small earthworm was immediately cut off by the sword and fell to the ground. The man was stunned, and then he screamed like a pig being slaughtered, fell to the ground and kept rolling. Lin Ling sneered, walked over and kicked a few times and said, stop pretending with your earthworm's penis, it won't hurt much even if it's broken. Nonsense, no matter how small my penis is, it will still hurt. The middle-aged man shouted in pain and replied with difficulty. He was so angry that he almost died. His man's most precious thing was destroyed, and he still had the face to mock him? I don't like to talk nonsense, so I'll ask you again, where is the address of the 18 branches? Pointing his sword at the middle-aged man, Lin Ling asked indifferently. The third brick beside the bed, it has the location of all the branches. In the end, the middle-aged man was afraid of Lin Ling, so he said with difficulty. Lin Ling looked at the bed. At this moment, the girl on the bed witnessed everything with her own eyes. She was so scared that she forgot to wear her clothes. However, Lin Ling didn't have time to admire her, and he didn't want to. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed the girl and threw her to the side. Then he used his realm essence to search around the bed, and finally found a sheepskin map in the third brick. After opening it and looking at it, Lin Ling was sure that this was what he was looking for. Then he turned and left. The middle-aged man was still rolling between his legs, but then he also picked up his penis. Seeing that Lin Ling had left, he let out a sigh of relief. However, just as he was about to inform the others to kill Lin Ling, and even help to fix his little earthworm. In the sky, tens of thousands of arrows had already shot down. Not only did they want to destroy the branch here, they also wanted to destroy the city here. As for the broken penis, since he had lost his life, there was no need to fix it back. The next day the people of the nearby tribes received good news. The world master of the Horsehoof realm had fallen, and the divine escort mansion's branch had been eradicated. For a time, the people of the Horsehoof realm were happy as if it was a new year. And Lin Ling had already left the Horsehoof realm. He had obtained the map of all the branches, so he planned to take revenge on the divine escort mansion. Chapter 3502. In the Yen state, one of the 18 branches had been destroyed. If he were to go to the remaining 17 one by one, it would be very time-consuming. Therefore, Lin Ling planned to use the dragon demons in the dragon pearl. Speaking of which, this was the first time the dragon demons had come out since he went to the final world. Next, Lin Ling held one of the dragon pearl fragments and moved his mind. In the blink of an eye, a large number of dragon demons appeared in the void. Each of them was as large as a mountain and as large as a sea. The entire void was occupied by these dragon demons. It was terrifying. Young master. After the dragon demons came out, they looked around curiously and then looked at Lin Ling with a smile. Thank you for your hard work during this period of time. Lin Ling said to all the dragon demons. Ever since he went to the final world, it was inconvenient for him to use the dragon demons. Therefore he could only hide them in the dragon pearl. It's fine. Young master probably doesn't know that not only is there a world in the dragon pearl, but it also leads to another world. Therefore, during this period of time, we weren't bored. The dragon demons laughed. One of them, who was the most familiar with Lin Ling, asked, "Young master, are you ready for revenge?" Lin Ling immediately nodded. "However, this time, the one I want to take revenge on is the Divine Escort Mansion. As for Martial God Wen Tian, I still don't have the strength to fight against him." "Okay, where do you need our help?" "There are 18 branches here. I destroyed one earlier. I hope you can help me destroy 16 and leave the remaining one to me. How about it?" Lin Ling took out the map and pointed it out to the dragon demons. Obviously, this was the first time the dragon demons had seen the map of the 9 prefectures. Therefore, they couldn't understand it for a while. However, they could forcefully memorize it. As long as they could memorize it, everything would be easy to find. "Okay, young master, wait for our good news." The dragon demons immediately spread out and flew in different directions in the void. Lin Ling was not worried about them at all because there were many dragon demons. If they worked together, unless there was a martial god, no one could stop these dragon demons. The Godly Escort Mansion is a great force that can be found all over the 9 continents. There must be a reason why they haven't fallen after so many years. I believe that they have quite a number of martial progenitors. However, I have just come out from the final world and have seen the martial progenitors there. Those experts are obviously more talented. Those from the 9 continents are no match for them. In fact, I estimate that the Divine Escort Mansion doesn't even have a 5th-grade ultimate desolate body. In the past, the Godly Escort Mansion was an extremely powerful existence to me. But now I can destroy it with a flip of my hand. Lin Ling looked at the map in his hand and was surprised to find that this branch was in the Yen state. "I can go back and see Master." Lin Ling couldn't help but smile. Taking a step forward, ripples appeared in the air. He was like a god who had returned after thousands of years. Step by step, he walked towards the Yen province. His speed didn't seem fast, but in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. Lin Ling appeared in the sky of the Yen province. Even the new Flame Emperor didn't notice his arrival. Lin Ling's gaze swept across the entire Yen province. The Yen province hadn't changed much from before. Perhaps the only change was that the Flame Emperor had been killed by the 9th god Eye. Lin Ling shook his head. He didn't have any good feelings for the Yen province, so he went directly to find his master. He walked in the sky of the Yen province. "Your Excellency, you are in such a good mood. You are casually walking in the Yen province and you look very unfamiliar. It must be your first time here." At this moment, someone saw Lin Ling and smiled faintly. The person who spoke was a man in white. He was at the peak of the Saint Realm. Because his cultivation seemed to be higher than Lin Ling's, he couldn't help but mock him when he saw that Lin Ling was so proud of his cultivation. Unfortunately, Lin Ling didn't pay any attention to him. "Master, this person is so rude." "That's right." Master kindly reminded him, but he didn't even look at Master. Seeing that Lin Ling was still walking forward, the disciples around the man in white were immediately displeased. It's fine. When he kicked the stone, he knew whether his foot hurt or not. If we ask him now, he will definitely say that the wine is very fragrant and the road is easy. The white-clothed man said confidently as he led the group of disciples forward. "Your Excellency, could you be Lin Ling?" Not long after, another voice sounded. This voice was extremely solemn. Then, an expert at the initial stage of the martial ancestor realm appeared and looked gravely at Lin Ling. Lin Ling glanced at him and didn't recognize him. He shook his head and continued forward. "Senior Jin Nanzi of the Miao province." As for the man in white and the others not far away, their pupils violently trembled. This was because Senior Jin Nanzi was an extremely ancient existence, even more ancient than the previous Flame Emperor. He knew everything that happened in the Yen province, so he was highly respected. Now he actually knew the man. Most importantly, when Senior Jin Nanzi greeted the man looked indifferent. "Oh my god, that man seems to be only at the 7th heaven sage realm. With such strength, when did he have the qualifications to be a boss? It seems that you really are Lin Ling. I didn't expect to meet you again." Seeing that Lin Ling was ignoring him, the expert who had appeared wasn't angry. He followed behind and said calmly, "May I ask if you have anything to do with the Flame Emperor's death?" What? When these words came out, even the man in white and his disciples were shocked. The Flame Emperor had died a long time ago. Everyone in the Yen province knew about this. Furthermore, the Flame Emperor had gone to one of the 7 forbidden lands of Huanyu and finally died there. Although no one knew how the Flame Emperor had died, anyone could imagine that the battle must have been intense. It was probably the highest level battlefield in the 9 states. But now that expert was saying that the Flame Emperor's death was related to a junior at the Saint Realm? Wasn't this joke a little too big? Half. When Lin Ling heard the question, his expression didn't change. He calmly replied. The Flame Emperor had died in the Starry Sky Forest, killed by the 9th God Eye, so he could only say half. After all, this wasn't Lin Ling's doing. However, the 9th God Eye and Lin Ling were friends, so it couldn't be said that they had nothing to do with each other. It's true. It seems that the rumors are true. Lin Ling, what happened back then? Please tell me. Hearing Lin Ling's reply, the expert's expression changed greatly. He quickly chased after him and asked again. Scram. However, Lin Ling was still walking forward, but his shadow suddenly bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Its ferocity was monstrous. The martial ancestor expert's heart was about to explode. He didn't dare to continue chasing. He stopped in place, his heart trembling violently. He didn't even dare to raise his head to look at Lin Ling. This undoubtedly scared the man in white and the others so much that they fell from the sky to the ground. The martial ancestor expert was so frightened by a single word that he didn't dare to move. Was this still the weak 7th heaven saint in their eyes? Chapter 3503. A Long Talk with Master. Looking around, the Great Change Nebula sect was filled with talented people. It was much livelier than before. Master. After Lin Ling arrived, he did not care about the rules and shouted. His shout shocked the entire sect. All the disciples were shocked and then they were furious. It was the same for those elders. However, when they clearly saw the person who had arrived, their anger immediately disappeared. What replaced it was shock and disbelief. That was because Lin Ling was back. Sect leader. Someone immediately sent a voice transmission to the Great Change Patriarch. In fact, the Great Change Patriarch had already sensed that someone was approaching. However, he was now sure of who it was. As for Xing Xiun, he rushed out from the West Mountain. When he saw Lin Ling with his hands behind his back, he was overjoyed. He did not expect that the disciple he took in Qingzhou back then had become a godlike existence in the 9 states today. Moreover, compared to the last time when he sent him back, the current Lin Ling was even more indescribable. It felt as if Lin Ling had returned from the world of God and had already received God's mantle. My good disciple. After Xing Xiun rushed out, he immediately stopped and looked at the sky excitedly. Lin Ling also saw Xing Xiuyun and couldn't help but smile excitedly. He took a step forward and stood in front of Xing Xiuyun, bowing slightly. Good. It's good that you're back. Xing Xiun excitedly helped Lin Ling up. He was so happy that he did not know what to say. On the other hand, Lin Ling smiled and asked, Master, have you been staying in Yin State all this time? Of course not. I went back to Spirit State some time ago and stayed there for a while. By the way, Master Tantric missed you. Xing Xiun immediately said. Oh, what about Master's wife? Master, how long do you want to drag this out? You're living in Yin Province now, but she's in Spirit Province. If the two of you are separated for a long time, maybe she'll find someone else to marry. Anyway, other than your bad temper, you don't have any other good points. I think you're much better than that, Master Tantric. Lin Ling teased. Xing Xiun immediately felt awkward. He laughed dryly and said, Actually, there's nothing between us. She's not your mistress yet. He naturally knew who Lin Ling was talking about. It was the island master of Peach Blossom Island whom Longyang had worshipped in the Spirit Province. Since there's nothing between you two, I'll immediately tell Master Tantra to marry that island owner. Hearing this, Lin Ling turned around and left. No. Xing Xiun immediately pulled Lin Ling back, her face turning even redder. Seeing this, Lin Ling couldn't help but sigh. Master, she has waited for you for so long. What's the point of wasting time like this? Since both parties like her, I'll arrange this marriage for you. This all right then. Xing Xiun lowered her head and said. From afar, Lin Ling looked more like a master, while Xing Xiun looked more like a disciple. However, Lin Ling could tell that Xing Xiun liked that woman very much, but he couldn't bring himself to ask for her hand in marriage. If an ordinary person were to ask for her hand in marriage, they wouldn't have the right to do so. Only Lin Ling was suitable. How about this? After I'm done with the matters in Yin Province, I'll go back with you. I'll also go back to Qing Province to take a look. Lin Ling immediately made up his mind. Since his master was getting married, he would definitely support him. Therefore, his return to the final world would probably have to be delayed. Where are you going, disciple? Hearing that Lin Ling was going to leave temporarily, Xing Shiyun immediately asked curiously. There's a branch of the Mansion of Divine Escort here. Today I'm here for him. Last time, the Mansion of Divine Escort hunted me down. Today I'm here to hunt them down. Lin Ling didn't hide anything and said with a faint smile. At this moment, Tai Yi Ancestor and the others were standing in the distance. They didn't dare to interrupt and could only quietly listen to the conversation between the master and disciple. When they heard Lin Ling's words, Tai Yi Ancestor and the elders immediately gasped. The disciples were even more curious. Elder, who is this? Why does he look so arrogant? Yes. I just heard from the elders that this guy's realm is not even comparable to the sect leaders. I don't know what right he has to be arrogant. Yes. The disciples were whispering to each other. He's the son of Devil Lin Ling, speaking of which, he's also your elders. Therefore when you see him you must show him sufficient respect. Yes. The elder of Tai Yi Nebula sect immediately said. The son of Devil? Yes. Some people's expressions changed while others didn't react. Obviously, not all of these new disciples had heard of the son of Devil Lin Ling. The Mansion of Divine Escort is very close to the Flaming Emperor. If you go to collect the debt, I'm afraid the Flaming Emperor will stop you. Sigh. At this moment, Xing Shiyun looked at Lin Ling, who was leaving, and couldn't help but feel worried. Flaming Emperor, if he doesn't know what's good for him, I don't mind demoting him. Sigh. However, the young man's domineering voice came from afar. Under the blazing sun, the young man walked away step by step. At this moment, the radiance that radiated from his body was even more terrifying than the Flaming Emperor of Yen's state. Tai Yi Ancestor didn't know if Lin Ling was bluffing, but for some reason when he looked at the back of the young man, he had a feeling that if the young man wanted to kill him, he could do so with just a flick of his finger. This feeling made Tai Yi Ancestor shiver. Since when had Lin Ling reached such a level of strength? He was much more powerful than Tai Yi Ancestor. Moreover, this feeling was so strong and so real. He couldn't help but look at Xing Shiyun. Then he shook his head in shock. He didn't expect that Xing Shiyun, who had been very ordinary all his life, would recruit such a terrifying disciple. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him the Devil King. This was because he was probably the only one who dared to ignore the Flaming Emperor in Yen's state. At this moment, Lin Ling was walking in another direction. Everything seemed casual. However, as he got closer and closer to the Mansion of Divine Escort's branch, a scholarly middle-aged man suddenly appeared in the sky in front of him. He held a scroll in his hand and was reading as he walked. He gave off a very good temperament. Lin Ling's eyes flickered, then he smiled disdainfully. He ignored him and strode over. When he passed by the middle-aged man, he didn't even look at him. This unusual action undoubtedly caused the middle-aged man to be taken aback. He thought that Lin Ling would interrupt him and ask him a question. However, Lin Ling acted as if he didn't see him. Are you stupid? Please, if you want to use strange methods to attract people's attention, you should at least come up with something new. This method hasn't been popular for 3,000 years. Just as he was surprised, Lin Ling's disdainful voice suddenly came from behind him. The middle-aged man was stunned, and he suddenly felt a little embarrassed and angry. He deliberately pretended to be mysterious, but in Lin Ling's eyes, there was no mystery in all of this. Instead, it seemed very vulgar. Tell me, what do you want from me? Lin Ling's voice floated over again with a touch of coldness in it. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.